welcome to another episode of Panel on Panels, the podcast about all things comics and comics related. I'm your host, John Campbell. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Mike Gargoni.
Greetings.
And Mr. Donovan Eilert.
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
All right. Sounds like it's going well.
Yeah, way to go. I mean, You guys sound like you're kind of like way better put together than some of us here.
Well, they're not hosting podcasts about comic books.
Well, we don't know that.
Well,
they could be listening to this and hosting their own podcast at the same time.
If you host a comic book podcast, let us know so that we could listen. Maybe. There is
I
right.
was going to say, or so that we can put an end to that.
John, we say those things off mic.
Snuff out the
Off
competition.
mic. Give us your name, your address, where you work,
List of fears.
social security number.
Yep. Any allergies or anything like that?
Yeah. For friendly reasons.
Yeah, clerical purposes.
And we'll
stuff.
be in
You
contact.
just, we need records
We'll be
and such.
in touch.
There could be only one. Because everything's Highlander.
I need that T-shirt now.
Everything's
is
Highlander.
Highlander, yeah.
Just shows a librarian decapitating another librarian.
That's exactly what it is. Look for that on our store, right? Boy, along with the 500 other T-shirts we've come up
We
with.
need to get on that.
Yeah, we do. And people are beating down the doors for the Panel on Panels T-shirts.
I know. I'm at least beating down my need for more T-shirts.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that wasn't going anywhere, was it?
No, I apologize.
We'll cut that out.
Yeah, you once again, you didn't hear that. So the fact that you didn't hear that.
Ignore that I had a joke that missed.
Sometimes I forget what we're talking about due to our unscripted horseplay, but
It's a cold open, John.
yeah, that's right. The podcast cold open.
Yeah.
No, today we were talking about. We're a little late on this one. Normally we like to be quicker on this stuff, but a little while back, Netflix they decided to put out another one of these Marvel shows, and we decided to watch it, I guess.
Well, quite frankly, I was compelled to watch it, John. I didn't really have a choice in this matter.
This is true.
Being the nerd that I am, I felt the need to shotgun all of this in the course of 24 hours.
There was
Yeah,
a
my
Marvel
choice
logo
a long
on it.
time
and-
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, Jessica Jones. Is
We're
what
talking about Jessica Jones.
But quite frankly,
Marvel's Jessica
like you say,
Jones.
we do it a little bit of a delayed, but the way I look at it is this time we kind of gave people time to watch the show.
This is true.
Because not everyone does what we do.
We watched like Daredevil in 2 days, and then immediately had a podcast out
Right.
about it. So it was like, well, we hope you watched it.
And we've been afraid of car
Yeah.
doors ever since.
But this one, yeah, it's true.
Now I'm just afraid of people.
Yeah. Bald
not-
people, I run.
Yeah. Oh, anybody bald,
I
they
did
just take off.
before. I
Yeah.
should have mentioned that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you've
I'm
got
not
that.
blaming
You've
that.
got that fear. The
Vincent D'Onofrio.
yeah, the fear of Vincent D'Onofrio.
No, I'm saying I'm not blaming that on Vincent D'Onofrio.
Oh yeah, who's not really bald most of the time. So you're okay with him
Yeah. Most of the time.
most of the time.
Must have really freaked out at the end of that new X-Men Apocalypse trailer then.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Ivan Ooze was right there, and I was like, no.
I was talking about the bald Professor X, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. They're both bald.
Yeah, it's true. That's where their power comes from.
I hope that there's a scene where Charles Xavier's like, we got to stop Apocalypse. He's no good. However,
He's no good.
I kind of like what he's got going on top.
Because he does have hair in other parts of the
I
trailer.
kind of think his upstairs is commendable.
We could learn a thing or two from this ancient god of destruction.
Maybe the only way to defeat him is to look like him. Which, I mean...
Hey, spoilers, man. We haven't seen X-Men
Mystique-
Apocalypse
Mystique can do.
yet. This is true.
Fair enough. We're not talking about X-Men Apocalypse.
No,
We could be.
We could be.
definitely. That certainly puts a time stamp on when we were recording this.
Yeah,
though.
well,
we might have
could
just seen that.
the movie.
Yeah. No, so Jessica Jones from Marvel.
Marvel's new Netflix show.
Yeah, Marvel and Netflix. The world will be theirs soon enough. It already
Okay.
pretty much is.
First time is a fluke. Second time is coincidence. So as of right now, we can say that, like, okay, Marvel, you're doing pretty good. Third time is a pattern, and I'm going to say...
Just with the Netflix. I don't know. You don't think they've earned enough goodwill from the other stuff they've done at this point too?
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
What was Daredevil a real gamble to you?
I feel like, yeah, based on what they've done with the rest of their movies and TV lineups, it's all been fairly family friendly.
This is
and
true.
Daredevil was a hard left into kids should not be watching this.
But kids should be watching Jessica Jones. Is what you're saying.
No.
What?
It-
I showed it to some kids the other day.
Oh God, John! I
They
feel
loved
like
it.
there are some grounds for some psychological damage you've done to those children.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they'll be fine.
Some lawsuits coming
I saw
your
stuff
way.
like this. I turned out okay.
Did you? We host a
Ah,
comic book podcast.
Yeah, that's true. Yikes. Those kids may not be okay.
No.
I'm sorry.
But yeah,
No, yeah, obviously.
it was definitely a hard left into some mature adult content, which is something that is definitely present within the Marvel comics.
Absolutely.
And while not necessarily lacking in the movies, it's definitely stuff they could further explore.
I mean, those aren't. They're not making kids movies by any means.
They're making family-friendly features, though.
Some more than others.
Yes.
Because Winter Soldier, I would not call that family entertainment.
I would think Winter Soldier deals with some more complex topics.
Yes.
But there's definitely a way to see the Avengers movies as giant toy commercials. I still love those movies, but like, boy, are they shiny for the kids. I'm one of those kids. It's super shiny. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. But much like Marvel Comics, that's the same case.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you pick up an Avengers comic, it's going to be an all ages
Right, but that's
read.
what I'm saying is...
Most of the time. Ultimate Avengers.
Ultimate, not so much, but that's because I wouldn't recommend kids read anything by Mark Millar.
I'm just trying to come up with any book that I'm like, there must be something. But
by Mark Millar that's
yeah.
kid-friendly? Off the top of my head, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, Nemesis?
If you know a Mark Millar comic that is even approaching appropriate for children,
please write in
please
about
let us
it.
know.
We want to know for some reason.
Sure.
But but anyway, Marvel's always... They've also tried to brand this line of comics a few times, whether it be Marvel Knights or Max or...
Well,
That's it, I guess.
But the thing is, like, even within Marvel Comics, you have the more adult-oriented
Yeah.
stuff. Like, stuff that's a bit more like, take Moon Knight, for example.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily recommend Moon Knight to, like, a cousin of mine in middle school. We'll, like, hand them some event, like, even Hickman's Avengers run, which is very heady, but still,
Yes.
like, pretty appropriate for kids of all ages. But stuff like Moon Knight or even Punisher, for that matter.
I was just going to bring up Punisher would be the probably ultimate example of this in the Marvel universe.
And not even Ultimate Punisher, but
No.
mainline Punisher.
Yeah, exactly. What? Oh, there is an ultimate Punisher, isn't there?
Oh, yeah, he murders
Is
lots
there
of people.
anything different?
Not really.
There's always an ultimate.
He just murders a bunch of
He
people,
murders
too.
a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, but
I would
that's
love it if
why
Ultimate Punisher didn't murder anybody. That's the difference.
they call him the pacifier.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be great. I think that'd go over super well with Punisher fans.
Pretty
too.
sure that was a Dwayne the Rock Johnson movie.
It was a Vin Diesel movie.
Vin Diesel, I
Yeah,
apologize.
yeah. Come on, man.
Oh,
You got to figure out. You got to separate your
sorry,
Fast and
I was
Furious
thinking
stars.
of the Tooth Fairy.
Yes, that's exactly what you're thinking. Vin Diesel passed on that one.
Right. But no, these Netflix shows
Yeah.
definitely took a hard left, I would say, into the more adult themed topics.
Yeah.
Whether it be with hardcore violence or in the case of Jessica Jones,
I mean, it's a.
I just blanked right there. My train of thought
Well,
trailed.
You're thinking.
No,
like,
it's not. It's not.
adult themed relationship.
Well, the sexual content is definitely there.
What it is, and I mean, at its core, in the comic, is to a certain extent of this. It's a rape survivor story,
Definitely, yeah.
and I mean, in the show explicitly states that several times.
I mean, Jessica goes out of her way to say, like, you raped me by assaulting, like, taking away my ability to control myself is definitely.
It's a mental rape and a physical rape as well.
Yes.
It's I mean, for those who haven't, well, I mean, hopefully you've seen the show because we are
At
going
this
to
point,
spoil
yeah.
everything at this point. But
Yeah, at this point, we're going to spoil everything about the show. If you haven't watched it yet, we highly recommend it. Go out and watch it. You should be aware that there are some very adult themes going on in this show. So if you're looking for a fun adventure, this is certainly a very intense show. It's very good. I wouldn't call it like high-flying action or like...
it has its moments of that. But
Yeah, but it's not
That's
the
not
Avengers.
the focus, though.
right.
Yeah.
No, it's not the Avengers.
It's not Iron Man.
It's not even Daredevil, action-wise.
No, what it is a noir.
Yes, definitely.
Fully, I mean, completely a noir. If I mean, I don't know what I would call. I mean, Daredevil has its noirish qualities, but this is firmly in the detective noir genre. And we should talk a bit about the source of where
Daredevil
this came
feels
from.
a bit more like Death Wish. This feels a bit more
No, yeah,
like The Big Sleep.
Daredevil is a vigilante story.
Right.
This is a detective story.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's a Raymond Chandler kind of vibe to this for sure. We should talk about the source of this, though, where this came from. This is unlike Daredevil, which is sort of Daredevil's been a character in Marvel for decades, so there's all this stuff to pull from. Jessica Jones is a very new character,
Relatively.
comparatively. I mean, pretty new. Really.
Do you know when the original Alias comic was published?
It would have been in the early 2000s.
I want to say around the same time. Like, it's roughly analog with like when Ultimate Spider-Man was running, I believe.
Yeah,
so like
so-
2004, 2005.
Yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah, I was gonna say early 2000s. We can use the magic of the internet to find an exact
You mean
date on that.
search our brains for just another moment
Yes, hold
more?
on. It's in here somewhere. And of course, anytime I do that, I have to do the Professor X fingers to the temple move
Yeah.
because that's how you think about anything.
You know what?
It ran from 2001 to 2004.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so but compared to Marvel characters in general, pretty new.
Oh yeah,
I mean, so yeah, Alias was the name of the comic. Wonder why they didn't call the show that.
I would blame J.J. Abrams.
Yeah, they're like, ask JJ about this. Oh wait, he works for us now. Oh okay.
Oh,
Oh,
whoops.
then he's great.
Yeah, he's fine. What's he doing now? Star Wars, only the biggest movie ever? No, yeah, I'm sure it's fine.
Okay, yeah, no, he'll be fine. That's a good choice.
Thanks. We didn't want that name. I'm glad you used it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But yeah, this was a book by Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Gaydos that created a whole new character within the Marvel universe.
Specifically, the Marvel Max line at the time.
But
Jessica Jones eventually became a character in mainline Marvel, but she definitely started out in.
was
its own...
Max its own universe?
Yes, definitely.
Really?
Yes.
I never read it that way. I mean, the characters
I
that
always assumed the Max stuff was like it's kind of a take it or leave it sort of a thing. Like it could definitely be. It could be.
I mean,
a
I
part
look
of the
at these.
Marvel
I
universe.
look at these Netflix shows like I look at the Max line. Really?
Yeah, I guess you could a little
I
bit.
mean, because like I don't know that there's
but
anything
nothing in the main line ever referenced the Max stuff until later.
right. But but there's nothing in Alias that separates it from the main line. I mean, other than its content. But
I
I'm
mean,
saying
there's
like
some of the Captain America stuff that, like, early on, like the whole, like, him in a relationship sort of a thing that doesn't necessarily jive with what was going on in mainline.
well, I don't
continuity.
know that it contradicts anything. With
It doesn't
though.
necessarily contradict anything. I, guess.
I mean, there's so many characters and stuff that come in and out of that book from the Marvel main line that I didn't. I mean, that seemed like. I mean, Scott Lang is a major character in it, and I
Carol
don't.
Danvers is a major character.
Yeah, and I don't read those as like I said, contradicting with anything in Ant-Man or
Sure, but
Miss Marvel.
let's put it that way. The Miss Marvel comic at the time didn't say anything about Jessica Jones.
True,
And if they
but-
were quote-unquote best friends, you'd think she'd show up in that comic.
Yeah.
True, but I go back to the Matt Fraction statement of why impose our understanding of time on this. We don't know where things are fitting into
Sure,
what
exactly.
order of what. Anyway, it doesn't. I mean, it's not Ultimates, is I guess what I'm
Right.
saying.
It's not an alternate reality.
Right. No, it's I mean, yeah, because like I said, I really think these Netflix
On
shows
Battle
are
World, we didn't see a Max mashup
Right,
happen.
exactly.
So, yeah,
That would be awesome.
that book would be really rough.
Why?
Just the world of Max, like encapsulated as its own world,
Oh, yeah.
would
I
be
guess-
so violent and gritty.
what
It would be over so quick.
would put it to me as like a possible alternate thing, like Deadpool Max is definitely a very different Deadpool.
Deadpool Max is. But this just hit me. It totally lined up with Bendis' Daredevil run completely.
yeah.
I mean, so much so that Jessica Jones is a character in Bendis' Daredevil. That's that. I mean, and that she works as Matt Murdock's bodyguard. Her and Luke Cage.
Yeah, fair
So
enough.
that's that. Just I'm like, oh, I read that.
So what we're saying is Bendis has his own continuity.
Yeah.
Which eventually became the entire Marvel mainline
Because
continuity.
he pretty much at a certain point was writing everything.
Yeah.
But which now is Cullen Bunn's job. But so anyway, yeah, this book, Alias, it's about Jessica Jones, who is a former costume superhero, not sort of like a fringe Avenger. I mean, not really.
She associated with the Avengers.
Yeah.
She wasn't an Avenger.
Yeah, exactly, and associated with the
In the
Avengers.
same way Spider-Man was for the longest time.
Yeah,
He was
And the-
helping out, but he didn't have that badge. Exactly.
Right.
and so but we find her having given that up for unknown reasons in the comic. For the longest time in the comic, unknown what happened.
For like probably
Almost-
close to 20 issues.
Almost the whole run of the comic. You don't know what exactly her deal is.
It's part of the complexity and the mystery of that character, which was why it's such an engaging read.
Absolutely, it's a great comic. I mean, first of all, we'll talk about the show, but we highly recommend the comic. It's an amazing
and
book.
they're reprinting them now in a couple of big trades.
Is it called Jessica Jones?
It's
now?
called Jessica Jones now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't before.
Actually, I think they are printing it as Alias.
No,
No?
I work in a comic book store.
Fair enough.
We have them.
Okay.
They're called Jessica Jones. I think it's Jessica Jones : Alias is
Okay.
what it's being called.
So I remember seeing the first one at Barnes & Noble like the other day. Sorry, I don't come into your comic book store, John.
That's all right. Nobody does. It's a comic book store. But
Support your local comic shop. That was the
that
weird
was
way we just said
that was what I was saying. That was my subtext. Acting school. So we find her working as a private investigator.
Something having pushed her away from being a costume superhero, though she still retains her superpowers.
Yeah, she has super strength. Oh, well, she's kind of lost her ability to fly a bit in the comic. She could full on fly as a superhero, and now she can kind of leap places.
As they say in Samurai Jack, jump good.
Yeah.
Also,
Oh no. Okay.
you know where this is going.
Yeah, I know, because this is now a tangent. Thank you for saying Samurai
This is
Jack.
super brief. Don't worry about
Okay.
it. I was completely in the black about Samurai Jack.
In
Had
the
never
black?
seen an episode. In the
In the
dark.
dark.
Yeah.
Wow, John. You racist. In the dark about Samurai Jack. I had never seen an episode or anything.
Now you've seen them all.
Not quite. But the other night I watched the first 2 episodes and just thought, how did I not write this? This is, as a kid, I would
One
have.
of the best things ever.
It is, it is amazing.
It's coming back.
Yeah, no, I saw that pop up on my Reddit or something, and I was just like, "What?
Yeah,
I'm
no,
freaking out right now."
it's pretty
I
exciting.
could not believe how good that show was.
No, it's
You
great.
haven't even gotten to the best parts yet.
No,
No,
I
it's
know.
a
And
great,
so
great
what I'm
show.
saying is I'm not going to spoil anything about the
Yeah.
plot line or anything, but you should watch that show.
We might talk about Samurai Jack at some point. There are
hope so.
comics of that.
Oh,
You
yeah,
should
they're
watch
pretty
that
good,
show.
actually.
Yeah, they're really
Everybody
good.
Always.
Yeah.
Wow, and it's all on Hulu.
Yes, it
Watch
is.
it.
Yeah.
Blah.
Yeah.
I'm
No, it's great.
freaking out. That's so funny that you just mentioned
There's a
that.
preview of a recommend. There's
That's
an early
every
recommendation.
time she'd used her jumping powers in the show. Every time I was just like, Jessica jump good.
That's so awesome.
But yeah, so we find her, and the book really takes on a. There's mysteries throughout it. It's kind of case of the not case of the week is the comic, and sometimes
But
it
you'll
takes up
have
2 issues.
arcs of 4 or 5 issues that'll
Yeah.
be one case or one mystery that she's solving.
Yeah, and we get to see her personal life as well. Though she drinks too much in the comic, she's a chain smoker, which we'll talk a bit about this more. But there's a few things that, as harsh and as the adult content of the show is, there's a few places Marvel won't go that I'm fascinated by.
Smoking.
That's kind of, and smoking is one of them, which I think is really interesting. That for all this, you can't make her a smoker.
It's interesting. DC's doing something or has done something very similar with Constantine.
But that has to do with network mandates as well. You can't show a main character smoking on a network TV show.
Really?
Period.
Huh.
At all. That just
Interesting.
can't happen. No matter when your show takes place. I remember there was an issue with some, I think ABC had a show set in the 60s, and they were not allowed to smoke. And it was just but historical accuracy is nope, standards and practices says nobody smokes.
Oh, wow.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah. But
I see
anyway,
the Churchill show. Where he's eating chocolate cigars the whole time.
yeah, he has candy cigarettes. Yeah.
Something about Castro where it's just
Yeah.
chomping on carrots.
Somehow just not as threatening, this
Or
guy
more.
took over. But anyway, Jessica Jones. That's sort of the comic and we come to learn in the comic that she had been manipulated by the Purple Man
To go try and kill the Avengers. The Avengers
Yes.
inevitably put the smackdown on Jessica Jones.
Yes.
Not realizing she was being manipulated.
Some of the best stuff in the comic is I think it's 2 issues near the end where she's telling Luke Cage what happened to her. Exactly, because
What I love about
Bendis dropped hints throughout of these things
Definitely.
that alluded to
She'd
something.
somehow been associated with the Avengers, and the Avengers were like, "We're sorry about what happened to you."
Yeah.
Over and over and over again. Especially her relationship with Carol Danvers was just I'm that was before my time. I'm really sorry
Yeah.
about what happened with you.
and
that
then
whole
so
thing.
much. I mean, the whole first arc of the comic is about Steve Rogers as well, and so we
Yeah.
sort of see he has kind of a respect for her to a certain extent.
He respects her gumption.
Yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
because that's the word he would use.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we got to take it back to the 40s always with
Yes.
Cap. Were you saying something about that before I?
No.
Okay. My favorite moments on the podcast. Hold on. Do you want to? Should we? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we discovered that, and I mean that go read the comic. I don't need to burn through everything that happens in
Right.
that comic. But anyway, she was manipulated by the Purple Man. For those who don't know, the Purple Man is a guy who's purple.
Zebediah Kilgrave.
Zebediah Kilgrave.
Was murder death taken?
Yeah. She he can control people's minds. He's a purple guy who can control. He's not even that big. He's just a purple guy who can control people's minds.
In the show, he's just called Kilgrave.
Yes, smart decision.
Not making him all purple.
Not making him all purple, and not naming him Zebediah. He has a first name. Kevin. He's Kevin. Is his name Kilgrave though?
No.
We're to assume he took on that name.
Yeah.
But his actual name.
And
is
I love
Kevin.
that people keep making fun of him for it.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that is fun. So flash forward now. I think.
They say his parents' names because she calls the university.
Yeah.
That out, but I don't remember what their last names are. It's not Kilgrave.
It's not. No. So this is a really interesting choice to do as their second Netflix show.
Yeah, definitely. It sets a definite tone in terms of.
But just in general, this was a highly acclaimed book. People loved this Alias book, but it was a very limited book. And yes, there's a sequel of sorts called The Pulse.
Well, yeah, sort of.
Jessica Jones continued in the comics.
Yeah, she became a fan favorite character who kept cropping up in the comics. She definitely became like a tertiary character within the Avengers comics as well.
Particularly New Avengers in his run.
Bendis never let her leave the spotlight all that much.
No, it's he has a real fondness for that character, clearly.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because she fits so much into the Bendis creations sort of before his Marvel years. If you read stuff like Jinx or Goldfish or the sort of early crime noir books that he was doing.
She's a nice bridge between the two.
Absolutely, yeah. So anyway, when they announced they were doing this, I thought it was such an interesting choice because, I think people are somewhat familiar with Daredevil, even if they just know the Ben Affleck movie. I guarantee you the vast majority of the general public has no idea who this character is.
Yeah.
And to just blatantly, also it's not a superhero name, to just be like, the show is Jessica Jones.
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah.
It's a...
And that's the response I got from a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's
a bold move.
I've been talking about these foreign Netflix shows forever. And people are always like, who are they going to do? I'm like, Daredevil. And they're like, yeah, like Jessica Jones. And it's a blank look.
Yeah.
It's real. I mean, honestly, which is kind of upsetting.
I mean,
I don't, unless they're reading some very specific books, I don't know how.
Well, another thing is the Alias.
I just feel like this
books
is
have
such a character, like a relatable character.
The books have been out of print for quite a while.
Oh yeah,
because
up
they're
until
just
very recently.
Because they're not
really
being
hard to
reprinted.
find.
Yeah, and I really hope that this show turns people to reading that book, and they have. I mean, once again, being in the comic book store, people come in a lot now and ask, "Oh, do you have any Jessica Jones books?" And I'm like, "No, we don't," because they're all sold out because everybody wants them.
Another book that she actually shows up in that I would highly recommend is Young Avengers.
Yeah, she is in there, isn't she?
The first volume of Young Avengers,
Yeah.
not the newest one. She's kind of following around.
Because at that point, she's working for the Daily Bugle.
She's working for the Daily Bugle. She's kind of like trying to track down the Young Avengers and figure out who they are and what their deal is. So she's a fun, like, kind of the reader's character for that.
I forgot about that. Yeah, she is in there. So anyway, they decided to do the show. Initially, the show was going to be called AKA Jessica Jones.
Which, I mean...
Because I think they wanted to keep that kind of Alias aesthetic.
I'm fine that they didn't, like, just keeping it Jessica Jones.
But they did create the episode naming scheme of every episode as AKA something.
Which is great.
So now let's turn things over to the show. The show is a bit different than the comic.
They clearly can't be as entrenched in the Marvel Universe because the Marvel Universe isn't as entrenched in itself.
No. I was hoping for Scott Lang, though.
Paul Rudd would show up.
He's been on television before.
He has been in television before.
He was just in a Netflix series.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
true. I wish he would have just popped in.
Yeah. I mean, he could have.
And we didn't even get Matt Murdock in an episode.
I really thought we
or
would
Foggy.
I really thought we would get one or both of them in the show at some
Wouldn't
point.
that have been awesome?
Did you think that you're gonna? I thought we would see a Matt Murdock because Matt Murdock's all over.
I'll put it this way: in
the comic.
like the second to last episode, on the Netflix, like what it says about that episode, it says, "And a very special ally from Hell's Kitchen will show up." And I was like, "Ooh, Daredevil?" No, I mean, I was fine with Rosario Dawson showing up as Night Nurse. Like that was cool.
Well, I like that Night Nurse is the thread between them all. She will be in all of these shows. Much like she is in the comics, the Night Nurse can show up in anybody's comic.
Right, and she's there to help out the street level heroes.
Right, exactly.
And I had heard that she was going to be on that show, and I waited that whole series for her to show up. I lost hope by the time.
Did I want Matt Murdock to show up as like a lawyer?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I mean, he's not name dropped, but he's specifically alluded to.
Oh yeah.
In a great scene.
The
with
fact
Rosario.
that this show doesn't specifically take place in Hell's Kitchen, though,
No, it's more New York proper.
yeah,
Including even parts of it like in like Manhattan and stuff.
right.
No, it's a definite. I mean, one of the first things about it that's so striking, it's so different than Daredevil in its look, in its tone, in its vibe, in the way it's shot. Everything about it is so different. In its main character, I mean, Jessica Jones is completely different than Matt Murdock.
Oh yeah, I'll say this. I watched the first episode with a friend of ours, and one thing we both took away from that first episode is there isn't a likable character in that episode until the very, very end, where Jessica decides to like stand up and fight. Like Jessica's not necessarily a likable character at first glance.
I mean, she fits into that noir detective burnout.
Yeah.
Kind of, I mean, a lot of those characters are really screwed up, alcoholics and stuff. I mean, which she certainly is.
But yeah, until the end of that first episode where she decides to like grow a spine and take a stand.
Yeah.
Like I'm just like, I'm not necessarily rooting for her.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's something that the Netflix, and I am assuming the Netflix shows will continue to show, are these main characters who are very flawed heroes, who are very not classical, even heroes necessarily. They're sort of anti-heroes to a certain extent.
I would say Daredevil is definitely more of a classic. He struggles morally with stuff, but he's definitely more of a classical hero than
But you look
Jessica
at what
Jones
he
is.
does to people. I mean, like, you're like, yay, you're fighting crime, but you just, like, paralyzed that man for life. I mean, in that kind of Batman-y sort of way where you're like, jeez.
But that next show, the next show of Luke Cage is gonna unwrite that.
You think so?
That's the thing. He's like a classic hero, and
That was the thing
so
about
much of the terms.
Like you meet Luke Cage in the first episode, and like you don't necessarily know what's going on with him, so you're not necessarily like super behind him. By the end of the series, he's the freaking paragon of that show.
It's true.
Side note, that guy, when you look at him,
Mike Coulter is the actor who plays Luke Cage.
he is Luke Cage.
The second he steps on screen.
Perfect. Like, to everything I want from the comics,
Yes.
he is perfect.
I want to see Luke Cage hero for hire. I mean,
I want to see Luke Cage and Iron Fist back to back, surrounded by ninjas.
Which there is a lot of rumblings about what they're doing with Iron Fist, whether or not they're even going to do an Iron Fist show.
Didn't they just announce a showrunner?
They did announce a showrunner, but what exactly that's going to take on as to whether or not they want to do
a movie.
Yeah, whether or not they want to do a full 13 of it, whether or not it's going to be combined with
they
Luke
took
Cage.
the risk with Jessica Jones. They can take the risk with Iron Fist.
And look, Into the Badlands on right now. John and I are watching. Is very like people are loving it. It's a kung fu show on television. People are ready for it.
I mean, the question I have, and we'll get back to Jessica Jones, but let me just veer into Iron Fist for a second.
Yes,
here.
please.
The
Veer
question
into Iron Fist is an awesome logo for something.
There you go, veer into Iron Fist. Something that's very interesting about that character, though, is Jessica Jones, Daredevil, Luke Cage, even very street level characters, very grounded. Iron Fist, kind of a crazy character, kind of there's mystical aspects to him and stuff. How are they going to address that? How far can you take that?
I
know how far you can take it, but how far will they take it?
Stephen Strange?
I think it's about the same time.
Yeah,
I think we're ready to go into the mystical stuff with Marvel, especially if you see.
No, not. I'm not talking about in Marvel. I'm talking about on Netflix in one of these shows where Matt Murdock's going to have to stand side by side with this guy. And how do I reconcile that guy was just in another dimension and Matt Murdock is punching a dude in an alleyway?
In the same way we reconcile that Captain America is solving political threats in a universe in which Howard the Duck is roaming around somewhere out there.
This is true. The other thing that comes with it too is a budgetary thing as well. They don't have anywhere near the money the movies do to make these shows.
They'll be fine.
Sure, but in a world where, like 15 years ago, we saw shows like Buffy and Angel do crazy crap like that on a weekly basis, I feel like Iron Fist has a chance.
I'm not saying it's impossible. But I mean, it's interesting that that's the one they've kind of been like.
I think they need to somebody.
They're
at
definitely
Marvel,
doing something with
somebody at Marvel TV needs to man up and just let's friggin' go for it.
I agree.
Who
do I got to call?
I think Jeff Loeb.
Jeff
is the
Loeb
answer
would be the
to
guy to
that.
call.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff. If you're listening, we talked to your buddy Tim Sale.
Yeah.
He agrees with us. You don't want to let your old friends
We can
down.
speak for Tim Sale. Insane. I'm confident if he was here, he would agree with us.
Probably.
But back to Jessica Jones. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about our. We'll get into the story, but let's talk a little bit about the cast of Jessica Jones here. We already mentioned Mike Coulter's Luke Cage. We can talk more about him, but we should start with Jessica herself, played by Kristen Ritter.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Perfect casting.
amazing casting. I was really happy when I've been a fan of hers for quite a while. She's an actress who's kind of floated around.
I mean, she was great in Breaking Bad. She was great
Amazing in Breaking
in Don't Trust the...
Be in Apartment 23.
I
She was
love
on
that show.
Veronica Mars.
She was on Veronica Mars. That's great.
She's kind of somebody who, I mean, she had a starring role in Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23, obviously, but that kind of flew under the radar. But she's somebody I've seen who's like come in as and taken really strong supporting roles where I'm like, wow, that girl's really interesting. You know, she's really good, but she's only in a few episodes. I mean, you think of it, she's only in like maybe 5 episodes of Breaking Bad.
I mean, now that you say that, yeah.
But the impact she makes as that character, and obviously what happens to that character and such, without spoiling too much of it.
You mean something doesn't work out well for a character in Breaking Bad? John, you're shocking me with your
But that
words.
specifically is a giant turning point in that show.
Yes.
But you know, and yeah, I've seen her in numerous supporting roles in movies. She was just in Big Eyes, the Tim Burton movie. And so it's so great to see her step into a leading role here and just crush it.
Oh, yeah.
And I guarantee you, Breaking Bad is part of the reason that led to this, because she played such a damaged woman on that show. You see that when they cast her, I'm like, oh yeah, because I saw her on Breaking Bad kind of play a different version. But
If she'd had superpowers on Breaking Bad,
a little bit like that. I mean, she wasn't. She played an addict on there. She played somebody who came from trauma and stuff like that. But man, yeah, she's just amazing and pulls off not only the vulnerability, but also the strength of the role. And
seeing her work through the damage she's suffered via Kilgrave over the course of the show is one of the more like triumphant character arcs we've seen in any Marvel property.
Oh, unquestionably, yeah. And I mean, and boy, if the wrong actress in this part, this thing could have tanked.
Oh yeah, but
because it is
the biggest struggle we've seen with Daredevil was like how hard he wants to punch people. Jessica has to be like whether or not she wants to even like stay in the country, whether or not she even wants to engage with what's around her.
Yeah, that
struggle is so.
This is
impactful.
the thing you can get into when you start. I mean, you know, look, they're both incredible shows.
Oh, yeah.
I don't necessarily want to get into like this one's better than this. I think this is a more, at the very least, emotionally complex show.
Yeah, I would agree.
Psychologically complex as well, certainly.
I mean, at the end of the day, I would personally say, just because I can distance myself from these things, is that I think Jessica Jones is a better show. I personally like Daredevil more, but that's just because Vincent D'Onofrio is the best thing ever.
Yeah, I think I like Daredevil. Yeah.
I will disagree that Vincent D'Onofrio is the greatest thing ever, and I will bring up the next cast member on the show that I want to talk about,
David Tennant.
which is
Trinity.
David Tennant, which is Trinity playing Trinity. I don't know. No. We have to talk about David Tennant, obviously.
Well,
Wow. And he gives us a couple wells in there.
He does.
I think he just says well like that, but
there was actually a bit
telling.
in the episode where she's staying with him at the house, where she says, "You're not 10 anymore," and I was just like, because he's not 10 anymore.
that's one of those where you're just like, did some nerd writer
They
just like
got
wrote that
to.
in and
They've
nobody noticed,
got
and he was just
to.
like, I got that in there.
But yes, Doctor Who's David Tennant, who
Yes.
played the 10th Doctor,
Yeah.
is our main antagonist for this show.
Kilgrave.
And he's the best part of that show, I think.
I think,
honestly.
I mean, this is I
He
mean,
is another level.
Great
on
villains
that
make
show.
great heroes, and
This is
he's
true, and I
one
think-
of our greatest villains we've had in the Marvel lineup.
I'm going to
He's
say,
up
in
there
my
with
opinion,
Loki for
in my
me.
opinion, the best villain we've seen in the Marvel universe.
No.
Bold statement.
Loki. John.
Loki's great, but I'm telling you, there and
I can't agree with you. I can't.
look, Loki's
I'm not
great.
possible. I'm
Kingpin,
not possible. I'm not
great.
able to.
There's something about this character. I've never seen this type of villain show up, maybe any comic book property.
I mean, he's, I believe, the first pure sociopath we've had.
But also that, like, it's not about taking over the world. It's not about destroying the city. It's not about this. It's specifically aimed at one person.
Yeah.
That's his goal. And he doesn't want to kill her.
He's
Right.
the most disturbing we've had.
Yeah, exactly.
sure.
He's
that is
definitely our Hannibal.
That
Oh,
is
yeah.
oh yeah. That is far more disturbing to me than threatening to blow up a city, taking over the world with an army of aliens, anything like that. To me, this guy is scary.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Which is
is he the scariest villain we've had? Undoubtedly.
absolutely. I mean, just
absolutely, he is
terrifying. One of the best scenes in the whole show, and you can see a little bit of it in the trailer too, is when she's in the police station and she comes out and everybody's got the guns on themselves or at each other, and you're like, oh no! Like anytime this guy shows up, it's just like, because there's no, you can't. He's so powerful and so blasé in the power as well,
and he's so convinced that what he's doing is right and it's
Yes.
okay.
and that's the best. Those are the best villains.
That's so hard to watch because he's
Yeah.
just like, oh, this
Yeah.
guy doesn't get it. This guy has no idea.
No,
like I said, like complete sociopath.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah.
like
Right.
when he's in the
completely dissociated from what other people are feeling at any given point in time.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all about him.
Like
those
the-
scenes where he just sends the kids into the closet.
Yep.
And he's just like, but I have to be. It's like, well, you're going to be in the closet.
yeah,
Deal with it.
Yeah, or man, that police station.
Yeah.
When the phone goes off and he's like, like phone and the terrible lighting. I'm trying to profess my love here.
The next person whose phone's ring has to eat it.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like
Imagine someone forced to try to eat a phone.
Well, it's interesting. We see him do a lot of terrible things to people. There's also a lot of statements of things that he's done to people
yeah.
that are even more disturbing. Now, unquestionably, he is far more complex and interesting than the Purple Man that's in Bendis' comic.
Oh, yeah.
That guy's just a cackling maniac.
Yeah, but to be fair, the Purple Man, he was using the Purple Man of the Marvel Comics, who is just like a cackling maniac.
Yeah, I mean, his name is Zebediah Kilgrave. He was like a foreign agent who fell into a vat of something.
He fell
basically.
into a vat of things.
Fell into a
like
vat of
all
purple.
supervillains do.
It turned him purple, and I mean, I love the way that
honestly-
they use purple as like an aesthetic with him, as like a motif.
Some of the lighting stuff in this show is like, it's so clever and affecting of just like every time you see the color purple, like even if you're not necessarily aware of it, if it's showing up on screen, you know that someone's being affected by
So
Kilgrave. Even if it's not necessarily him being there to affect them,
Right.
some kind of ripple effect is
Yeah.
affecting them.
Well,
that first episode when she's like thinking about it and the light behind her just shifts. It's like, whoa.
And I mean, yeah, they also did that. They did the same thing that they did with Kingpin, and it was super smart. And I think even more so, they really slow rolled him. They built up this dread for him. You don't even see his face until what, episode 4?
Something like that.
Because even when I think it's the end of 3 when he comes into the people's house and he's like, "You want to let me into your house?
Yeah.
You want to do this?" It's all behind him. It's not until she sees him through that sliding glass door and he stands up and you see him, and it's just like, "Oh wow, the impact of this, the power they build in that storytelling by holding him back."
To be fair, I think they did something very similar with Kingpin.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean that's a really smart decision, and it brings me back to this thing about these shows have the best villains I've seen in the Marvel universe because they have that ability to do that. You can't slow roll somebody like that in a movie. You just don't have the time.
Loki
You can
shows up in the first scene.
Well, yes. I mean, and Loki's obviously a much different kind of villain. But in general, like the most you can hold somebody off for in a movie, it's like a half hour, maybe. You know.
Yeah.
Here you can. I mean, that's the thing. They've got 13 hours to develop everybody. Of course, everyone's more fleshed out.
Yeah.
That's always my kind of defense of the movies a little bit, where it's just like, well, yeah, if Avengers had 13 hours, Ultron would be the absolute most fascinating thing in the world.
Right.
But he had 2 hours to do it, you know, and
Right.
he's got 50 other characters as well. But yeah, that's the thing about these Netflix shows, and man, David Tennant just sinks his teeth into this role too.
He kills it.
Yeah, I mean, and this is also I feel so happy for. I'm being a fan of his for a long time, and having seen interviews, he's such a fan of this stuff too. He's such I know he's such a Marvel nerd in particular that like this must be a giant thrill for him to be able to be a Marvel supervillain, and the writing on this. That's the other person we should talk about. We talked about the cast, but we should talk about Melissa Rosenberg, the showrunner of Jessica Jones. Boy, did she knock it out of the park on this one. Her and her writing staff.
How like deeply involved was she in the like plotting of the show and stuff? Do you have any idea?
Oh, this is her thing. I mean, much like Stephen DeKnight on. I mean, these are. I mean, that's how television is these days. It's an auteur, really.
Right. I know the Netflix shows specifically.
Yeah, are
like that.
very like. I mean, when Marvel's bringing somebody. I mean, of course, you got people like Loeb and even Bendis around to sort of
But
pitch and stuff.
they're the overseers. They're not necessarily on the day to day.
Exactly, but this is this person's show. Melissa Rosenberg, she used to showrun Dexter as well. totally smart decision to get somebody from Dexter to do this as well.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about another show that had a real strange vibe and a real kind of dark noirish tone to it as well, and even similar with the voiceover and stuff to it to a certain extent had that kind of vibe. Somebody will point it out, so I'll just do it. Melissa Rosenberg did write the Twilight movies, but I would probably take that gig too for the amount of money I'm guessing that you can get from a Twilight movie that then gives you the ability to go run a bunch of Netflix shows. You know,
Yeah.
and also how hard a gig was that really? You know,
I don't blame her for that because Twilight existed. She just grabbed that particular bull by the horns.
and I wouldn't necessarily say like her adaptations were terrible. I mean, she
Right.
did the best with what she had, as I would say for almost anyone involved in those movies, and including like the actors and stuff. It's like
Right.
what are you going to do really with that? I mean, there's our slam on Twilight. We're really
We're gonna wait
I
and
am holding back in a big bad
taking that-
because that's not what this podcast is about.
yeah, but we're really taking that risk and taking a shot at Twilight.
Twilight sucks.
But no, her scripts are amazing. I mean, that the actors are of course incredible, but the material that they're given is certainly amazing. And then we can turn now. We should talk a little bit more about Mike Coulter's Luke Cage.
Luke Cage is possibly my favorite part about the show, like after David Tennant, just because his character being I don't want to say straight man, but definitely like more of the paladin as opposed to Jessica Jones's more like knight errant, more like gray kind of approach to things. He's definitely I am out to do good.
Well, it's interesting. Jessica Jones is a person who has powers. Luke Cage is a superhero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't figured it out yet because he's still trying to figure out what he is capable of and what he can do. Oh man!
And also deal with the death of his wife and
yeah,
all kinds of things.
And I was just talking to somebody about it the other day where they were like, I wonder how they're gonna, it was like I kept wondering like how are they gonna explain his powers? Do we get like a monologue about? It's so simple and perfect.
Buzzsaw to the
he takes
fucking
that saw
stomach.
to his stomach and it sparks, and you're just like, oh, he's got unbreakable skin. That end of story.
Right.
Luke Cage's powers are so simple.
Yeah.
And he's super strong.
Yeah, he's super strong as well, and you see that he just like lifts people up. I love Donovan. You and I were talking a while back about the fights in the show are so because I remember somebody was talking about like, oh, but are the fights going to be as good as Daredevil's? Like they're not going to be the same thing. They can't be. These people don't do kung fu. Somebody was just telling me that it's so interesting that like when you see Luke Cage fight, he's a fighter. Like he knows how to fight. Jessica Jones can't fight. She doesn't know how to fight.
No.
She just throws people into walls and
because
stuff.
she's super strong.
Right.
I love that moment when they first start doing that bar brawl against like the rugby players, and they just like there's a moment where she throws somebody and he throws somebody, and then they look at each other and they're like, oh, I guess we're both super powered. Let's do this.
Another one of my favorite things about the show is the sort of moment where it's just like you're like me. Like I've never met another person. Like superheroes aren't taken for granted like they are in the movies because of course they are. We've seen
Or in the comic
how
books, for
many
that matter.
people. Oh, and in the I mean, even more. You've seen thousands of people with
Right.
superpowers. It's nothing to a certain
But
extent.
I think we're just getting to that point in the MCU where super people are becoming more commonplace. There was that great bit in Ant-Man at the very end where it's like, well, we got all sorts of people now. We got a guy who jumps. We got a guy who swings. We got a guy who crawls on walls.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a guy who shrinks.
Yeah, which is so great. Or even like just in that movie, them talking about the situation, Scott Lang going, "We should call it the Avengers." Like just that idea that
This stuff is becoming common. Not necessarily commonplace, but uncommon as opposed to rare.
What's so interesting is so much of the crux of the show is about do people believe that Kilgrave can do what he does? And for some, I find this so interesting. This idea that like the Avengers happened, Age of Ultron has happened,
Yes.
yet people are like, a guy can control minds. Now that's crazy.
Well, I think
that's
people-
crazy talk.
But by the end of the show, we do see that, like, maybe it's not so crazy.
Yeah.
There's a great, and this will be a segue to talk about another cast member, but there is a scene where Patsy Walker specifically states, we saw the sky open up and a bunch of aliens come out. Why can't you accept that
Right.
somebody could control minds? Because it is like, I'm way more willing to believe that than the aliens that showed up.
Yeah.
But we should talk about Rachel Taylor as
Patsy Walker's the
Walker.
best.
Patsy Walker is so awesome. Kind of filling in the Carol Danvers bit.
Oh, she definitely is.
Here,
And-
which is smart.
And if people don't know, she's Hellcat,
Hellcat,
in the
yeah.
comics.
And now,
which is awesome.
thank you once again, Netflix, for there is now a Patsy Walker, a.k.a. Hellcat comic that's going to be starting up soon. But man, she's great
She's
in this.
really, really
yeah.
good in this.
Because when it first started, I was like, oh, do we need this character? It just felt
By
like...
the end.
Oh, I'm talking like the first episode, because it was just...
No, that's what I said earlier. In the first episode, I wasn't necessarily on board with any of the characters.
I mean, to a certain... Well, I kind of got...
Except for Jessica at the very end.
I don't, have you watched iZombie, Granny?
Yeah, like the first season.
Her friend in that show is so unnecessary
Yeah.
that was the first thing I was like, oh no, here we go. A pointless friend. I know Patsy Walker turns into Hellcat, but boy is she interesting.
My biggest issue with Patsy Walker in the show,
Is that she doesn't turn into Hellcat?
one, that she doesn't turn into Hellcat.
we get a taste.
You get a taste of it for
Well,
sure.
here's the thing.
Season 2, I think, is going to be
Here's the
all
thing:
about
is
Hellcat.
she's training to do this.
Yes.
She's going on missions. She does nothing. Like in a fight, she doesn't. Like we never see the moment where all of her hard work pays off.
She doesn't get a chance, I guess.
She's beaten up like 4 or 5 times in the show.
Yeah, but it is
And
interesting.
I want
to
to see. I wanted to see that moment where she gets a taste of what that glory is like. That's what I wanted. That so bad.
She does get a taste when they take down Nuke.
All right, yeah. Well, hold off on talking
think
about
so?
Nuke, but
Yeah, they tag team him.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh
They
yeah, for
definitely
sure.
do.
That's the whole point of that scene, isn't it? But what I was going to say, what I
Yeah.
find so cool about the Patsy Walker in the show is that, yeah, I mean, for Jessica, like we talked about, for Jessica, she doesn't need to know how to fight. She can just throw people on walls. Patsy Walker is like training relentlessly to be somebody who can.
She's becoming Batman.
Yes, exactly, which
Well,
is so
something-
cool.
Something I love about Luke Cage fighting, he knows how to fight, but most of the time you watch him,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just moving out of the way.
Oh, he's pulling
Yes.
his punches.
He
It's
has
very-
to pull every punch, and he's just very much like, okay, I'm going to let these guys hurt themselves.
It is
because
like the
if
expression.
I could end this fight in a half a second.
Mike Coulter's genius in those scenes. The way he's just kind of like stepping around people and almost letting people run into each other, just like changing people's direction, just like, oh, this is an annoyance that I have to do this. Like it's
Please don't break my bar.
right, exactly. Yeah, because he's not worried about himself. One of the best scenes is when the guy tries to stab him and the knife breaks, and he just looks like, "Did you just try to stab me? The hell, man? That's not cool."
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, come on. Like,
Yeah.
and that's Luke Cage to me.
Right.
Like that is
Oh,
so
and at the
Luke
end,
Cage.
he's like, you guys are drunk. This
Yeah.
didn't happen this way. Get
Yeah.
out of here.
yeah.
That's probably one of my favorite parts about the Luke Cage progression in the show is like throughout the show, I could see this guy becoming a leader of an Avengers team.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
Like, will it ever happen? I kind of doubt it.
Oh, I sincerely doubt it. But
I could
especially now
see
that
this character
we're hearing
becoming
weird stuff about
the
whether or not
leader-
they can even legally be in movies and stuff like
What?
that. Oh yeah, did you not read
I've
this
not
the other
heard
day?
this.
No.
So they asked. I think they asked Loeb, like, well, the Daredevil in the movie. So he's like, it's not that simple. We're the same company, but we're different divisions.
Is that true with like the Shield stuff too?
Absolutely. The TV division is basically its own entity. They
Shit.
talk to each other so that they don't screw up continuity with one another. But you would have to jump through hoops to get somebody in a movie.
Dang, that blows. Or
Yeah.
vice versa.
I don't know about that because we've seen that.
Yeah, we've seen
I mean, we've seen
Maria Hill, and we've seen
Maria Hill, we've seen Lady Sif, we've seen Nick Fury,
Nick Fury.
in
That's
Agents of Shield.
Yeah.
That seems to be a lot more like, yeah, sure.
no Scott Lang and Jessica Jones.
No. Well, I mean, did you really think Scott Lang was going to show up here?
Yes,
I
I
had
still-
hope. I didn't expect it.
I still believe it. I've watched the series 10 times.
He's
and
in here somewhere. He's very small.
Very small.
looking.
He's in
Very
there
small.
I
somewhere.
keep looking.
I feel like that joke will be for literally every Marvel movie going forward.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
everyone's
he's in there. No, he's right in there.
Didn't see him.
Paul Rudd could say he's in every single one of these movies.
Yeah, and for all we know, he's telling the truth.
Yeah, I don't know.
J.J. Abrams, R2D2, he's somewhere in there.
Oh yeah, no, he's in there. You gotta look real close. Yeah. So anyway, though, I very much enjoyed what they did with Patsy Walker. Patsy Walker. So much of this show, and I think I was talking to you a bit about this, Donovan. So much of this whole show is about control.
Oh yeah,
At its
Yeah.
core. Let me get English major on you a little bit here. You're
with
going to
you, John.
yeah. I was going to say you'll
I'm
go
with
with
you,
me on
John.
this. This entire show is about controls, about power dynamics, and we talked a little bit about it. But the content of having these sex scenes, which is something that Marvel has never done. Even those are they all play into this thing about power dynamics, and specifically a lot of it gender politics.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll talk about Hogarth and that whole thing, because that's interesting stuff.
That
as well.
is a whole thing.
It is a whole thing. It's almost its own show to a certain extent within
Yeah.
this show. But yeah, this whole show is about control and taking control and losing control, and what does it mean to have control, and sort of in some ways the detriment of that control. You see that with Kilgrave.
That was such a weird thing. It's just like, how hard do you think it is for me to just say something
Yeah.
and people just do it?
Yeah.
Well, he's playing the victim there,
Right.
which is really interesting.
But he's not lying when he says that. though.
Wow.
Well, he's not though, because we see,
Wow.
I mean, there's at least elements of that within him. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't excuse anything or make him likable or sympathetic in any way.
But here's the thing,
But I
let's
think
Seeing him
I-
try so hard in the later half of the season to just be like, I want
But that,
to not control you,
Yeah.
and it's so difficult for me not to.
But here's-
It's so weird and interesting.
the other thing, though, is he could just unsay those things, right? He could tell somebody to do something,
Well, I
and then
mean,
if he tells them something
he's
again,
still crazy. Like he's still evil.
yeah. I'm
but-
just saying, like, he's not the victim.
But there's that great scene where he goes to buy the house and he's going to control the guy, and he's like, "No, wait,
Right.
just look at this money." Like there are other, because I mean, it's
Well,
almost
and then
getting
as soon as
boring to him.
But
Is
then
the thing
as soon
about
as
it.
he agrees to him, he's like, okay, now get out of here, right? As soon as he gets what he wants, then it's different, right?
Does he mind control that guy?
Yeah,
at that
he
point?
does.
I don't know that I took it
He
as
could-
that.
Yep. He's like, can
You
you
have
get out of
24
here?
hours to get out of this house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
but
he totally does. He's like, you look this over. Is everything okay? And the guy's like, yeah. He's like, okay, you have 24 hours to get out of my house.
yeah, I don't know though. I don't know. I didn't
All
read
the
that as
house
mind control.
stuff is so weird. It's so
But
weird.
gripping.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I mean, that's
Oh, yeah.
This is the thing. This is why it's a better. I'll say this is why it's a better show than Daredevil.
John, you just said you weren't going to say it's a
I
better
know, but
show
it
or
is.
not.
Well, but I mean, and you were even saying objectively that it gets to this level of intensity
Yeah.
without fight scenes. I mean, it does have some fight scenes, but I'm saying like that.
But
Just
specifically between the main
watching
antagonist
those
and protagonist.
watching just scenes between Kristen Ritter and David Tennant is as engrossing as any fight that's in Daredevil.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
Oh,
For me.
yeah. I
For
mean,
me, I'm just saying.
yeah, it's a level of intensity, but I'm just.
I would
like,
agree,
You're
but-
just watching two people talk to each other, and also the simplicity.
Especially by the time we get to the point where Kilgrave has like recreated Jessica's childhood home.
Yeah.
Like by the time we get to that and we're so deep into his psychosis, we've seen how deep that goes.
Yeah, it's the sincerity of that though that's so like it's like,
Right.
oh no, there's no game, there's no ulterior motive here. He's professing his love to her. He wants her to be with him.
He is effectively an all-powerful crazy person who just wants her love.
Yeah.
And what he can do to accomplish that is horrifying.
But
Absolutely.
it's not all. It's not. We find out later. It's not only her love.
Well, no,
It's
it
a-
is. I
No,
mean,
no, it's not, because we find out that she's the only person that's ever been able to snap out of his control.
yeah.
And that makes her the most fascinating person. And so he's trying to test his limits the whole time. I don't think it's all. I mean, he's.
Oh, I think that's his attraction to her. She's the one
That's
person
what
he
he
can't
thinks
control.
is love.
But it's not all about that, though. Because deep down, he wants to know where this ends so that it doesn't happen again.
He wants to. I mean, he wants to possess her,
Yeah.
but
Which,
The-
by the
the-
way,
to him, the
doesn't
ultimate-
work. If you go up to a girl in a bar and say, "I want to possess you," it does not work. Out.
Very rarely. Depends on the bar, I guess.
Yeah.
yeah, you guys are going to the wrong bars.
Oh.
That's all I'm saying. Because that has been working for me. There's a few women I possess. That's all right. No,
That's their next shirt.
there it is.
I don't think it is. I really don't think it is.
Gorgonia, it's our bestseller.
We've already sold 30 copies in the last 10 seconds.
But anyway, so much of this, basically the point. Yeah, the show's about control.
No, it is the theme of the show, I would say.
Oh, unquestionably.
Whether that be the literal like mental control that Kilgrave does, or like Jessica's own control over her life.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a bit like that's
Or
the whole I think thrust of that first episode is her retaking, or at least beginning to retake control.
Yeah, I mean that's really the show to a certain extent. But I was also going to say, or like the Patsy and her mother's relationship about control
Oh,
as
yeah,
well.
that was
and
fascinating.
that's real
Yeah, and that all the of the weird like former child star stuff with her.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting stuff.
Well, you know how that I see the direct evolution of that, though, is from the comic books.
Oh, yeah.
Is because Patsy Walker originated in kind of like an Archie knockoff.
Oh,
sort
very
of a
much
thing.
so, very much so. I mean, like her and Millie the model, and like that. There was a whole line that Marvel was putting out in like the 50s and 60s that was definitely trying to do
Right.
the Archie sort of thing.
But when she got brought into mainline Marvel as like Hellcat,
Yeah.
it was alluded that her mother had like made all of those comics to make her daughter a child star.
That's right.
So this is just a very natural like progression of that into the modern era.
I thought all that stuff was so cool and such
yeah.
an interesting idea. She has this talk show that sort of becomes a central story point with her sort of challenging
Parts with
Kilgrave.
her
calls
challenging Kilgrave was
Kilgrave,
so
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And when he calls in, I mean, just the thing about it, too, I was talking to my sister about this who's watching it, and she's just like, oh, but David Tennant is still just giving a David Tennant performance. Like, he's almost bringing the same swagger and charisma he brought to the Doctor, but the context is so different.
So much more horrifying.
But he's still playing, God, he's charming. And she calls him the devil. He has that kind of thing where it's like, the devil is a charming, handsome man in a suit, you know? I mean, like, that's what he is. And boy, the confidence that he wears as this character and stuff is...
Which makes him all the scarier.
Mm-hmm. And then when you see him when they lock him in that chamber...
That was some of the most gripping stuff in the show, other than maybe the house stuff, is the reversal of Jessica almost being the villain in that sequence.
Yeah.
Like, obviously Kilgrave eventually turns around, like, no, he's still, like, as the evilest mother you're ever going to meet. But Jessica getting that darkness from him and trying to use that to, like, make him submit, to make him admit his wrongs.
Yeah. Once again, we're turning the power dynamics there.
Right. Was very just like, oh, I don't know if I'm comfortable where Jessica's taking this. Like, I don't
And
know
the
if
other
I'm
characters
still on
aren't
board
as
with her
well,
character.
yeah.
And I was on board with all the other characters.
Yeah. Except for Hogarth. We should talk about Hogarth.
Yeah.
Carrie Ann Moss plays Jerry Hogarth, who is a character from the comics, who's a
Yes.
man.
So yeah, they gender reversed that character. She is supposedly, well, everyone was assuming she was going to be the through line into Iron Fist because that character in the comics is Danny Rand's lawyer.
Yes.
And
I love that everyone in Marvel has a lawyer.
I mean, you'd have to.
Yeah. Well,
Get sued all the time.
most
for
people's
destroying
lawyer
stuff.
is Matt Murdock, but,
Yeah.
you know, there's also Jerry Hogarth.
Or Jen Walters.
I was gonna say
That's
Jen
true,
Walters
yeah,
is a
yeah.
big one, too.
And when they have to go against each other in court, now that makes for some good comics. So we have Jerry Hogarth played by Carrie Ann Moss.
She's
Trinity from The Matrix.
the what do they call her in the show? Like the sharkiest of lawyers.
Yeah, she is. She's so the opposite of Matt Murdock.
Oh yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah, she's all. It's all like
That's kind of why I expected Matt Murdock to show up in the show, just to go up against her.
Yeah, I thought that was where they were going to.
Like just a scene of him in her office leaving, I would have taken it.
Or even Foggy. I mean,
Yeah.
like maybe Charlie Cox is busy, but what's that guy doing?
Why didn't Hogarth work for like Lehman and Zach?
Oh yeah,
You know, that could have been connection too.
yeah, for sure. But I mean, also I like that they're expanding the world. There are other law firms out there. You know,
Nope.
like
Just
this is sort of a
Hey, there's only two lawyers in Perry Mason,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
There's Perry Mason, there's Hamilton Berger.
this is true. There's a defense attorney and a prosecutor, and that's it.
That's right, and he's the DA. And
That's all you need.
there's all
What
these-
do you need?
There's all these
Their
things.
caseloads must be intense.
Yeah,
Well, they put out a show every week, John.
Yeah, this is true.
they're on 5 times a week at noon.
Yeah, Donovan, you know they're not still making Perry Mason, right?
No, they are.
Just no one else gets to see it but Donovan.
If you watch closely, every time you think you've seen the episode before, watch very closely.
Donovan, does anyone else see the slight variations in the TV that you're watching?
I've got a blog.
Oh no.
People seem to be pretty upset with me, but I don't think they know what they're talking about.
Is this similar to Dracula 365?
I was just about to say. It's on the same website as my Dracula 365 blog.
Yeah, there are a couple people who subscribe to both.
Mason 24/7.
Yes, that's right, and they're not happy about it. They're subscribed against their will.
Guys, we're gonna have to have some serious conversations off mic here. So Jerry Hogarth, as I said, she's a lawyer. Jessica Jones, Kind of works freelance for her as an
She
investigator.
gets jobs from her from time to time.
Yeah, because I mean, Jessica Jones is sort of half-heartedly running a private investigation firm at this point.
It's
really,
something that pays for her booze.
yeah, but she's not. I mean, and in the comics, this was sort of the case too, where she was like, "I mostly just look stuff up." You know, like it's a pretty. It's like a whatever job to her, and because that's also a big arc of the season, I think, as well, and especially the last image of the show is very much this like conclusion
I
of like,
love
this is
that.
who I am, this is what I do.
Speaking of the last image, we got to talk about Malcolm.
Yeah.
Been waiting this whole time. He's one of my favorite characters in that whole show.
Talking about oh boy, Eka Darville,
Yeah, that guy.
EKA is his first name. Eka
Yeah, sure.
Eka Darville, who plays
Continuing
Malcolm.
the long tradition of butchering people's names.
Yeah. Now,
guy.
Malcolm's in the comic, but in a much different capacity.
His story arc in the show is so good.
Yeah.
Because you meet him as a junkie.
I was not a fan of his character until we learned about the whole like Kilgrave thing, and
He's
then
been Kilgraved.
and then it becomes just like, oh wow,
And
okay.
then-
Not only has he
And
been
then-
Kilgraved into being a spy, but he's been Kilgraved into being a junkie.
Right. Like there's that bit where he says like I am only around him so long, I'm clearly not being controlled by him all the time. At some point this was my choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, I mean, obviously the initial choice was Kilgraves. So
Right.
you talk about then what drug addiction does to you mentally and on a physical level. But his arc and then what he does with it afterwards with the support group,
Well, that's one of the things I like.
man, it's
He's-
so rich.
He traumatized by Kilgrave in a similar way to Jessica, obviously in a different way, but I mean, in that they both went through this thing.
They both had a complete loss of control to their lives.
But his reaction to it is completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the heroic action.
Right. He's going to help others. He's not going to self-destruct.
Right.
Yeah.
He's going to better himself and other people, which is, I mean, what a great character.
And
Yeah, really.
The other people that I found endlessly fascinating and I started to root for by the end are the crazy brother and sister from honestly.
Yeah, see, I had less of a positive reaction to them.
At the beginning, I was like, "Oh, this is so weird," and then the guy showed up and he was kind of funny, kind of weird, and then
You've got Kieran Mulcair playing Ruben,
Yeah.
and Colby Minifie playing Robin.
and then when Ruben, but here's the thing: is you see that there's some kind of mental illness there.
Yeah.
So when Kilgrave strikes out against Ruben, it's
Yeah.
like, no, you don't. You don't do that, right? It's almost like striking against a child.
It
at
that was
point.
such a shocking moment when you're just like, wow, you don't think they're going to kill that character.
Yeah, and then his sister, who doesn't know that he's dead and can't know he's dead for a while.
I thought that was a
so
fine
heartbreaking.
plot turn, but I think
so
they
heartbreaking.
yeah, I just felt like they focused a little bit too heavily on her. Like I didn't necessarily care as much about her like
But she's grieving this. and she
inquisition that she starts perpetrating against Jessica.
She's grieving this, and she doesn't understand this, and she doesn't know about the mind control, and she doesn't know how to deal with all this.
I mean, yeah, I think
her whole world is crashing down, and we get to watch that, and that's
she has that aspect of the show, which is like, okay, if you don't believe this, then
It's the innocence
these
getting
people are
dragged in.
monsters, and
Yeah.
you need to. And that, oh boy, another incredible image is the when everyone's in nooses
Oh,
yeah.
as well. I mean,
wow, that's an intense moment.
yeah, and sort of that moment where obviously she clicks into, oh no, he's controlling people's minds. Like, yeah, boy, the show is filled with these incredibly intense moments that are. The name of the game here is really tension more than it is action,
Yes.
and almost horror in a lot
I'll
of
keep
ways.
coming back to Hannibal and Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a like emotional thrill ride that you go on in each episode of this show that akins itself strongly to those.
Well, because you look
movies.
at what is that Hannibal Clarice relationship,
Right,
That's kind of
precisely.
in that thing because there is sort of this weird like, God, he's kind of in love with Clarice in this very disturbing way, especially by the time you get to Hannibal.
Yes.
And the third person you see Kilgraved and take it the completely different direction is Simpson, the cop.
Yeah,
Which by the end of the show, I was like, get this guy out of here. He's the worst. When he shoots the detective, I don't remember what that guy's name is.
Will Traval plays Simpson or Nuke. We can talk
That
about
was such a
I
weird
just-
pull from the comics.
what a deep pull.
So in the comics, Nuke is a Vietnam veteran.
Yes.
Who has is kind of a chemically induced half super soldier sort
Yeah.
of thing. He takes pills to like
This
beef
is the red
himself up.
pill. This is the blue pill.
Right.
Was you take red to
Red'll get you up, white'll even you out, and
Yeah.
blue will bring you back down.
yeah. As soon as they did that, my thought wasn't. I know some people are like, "Oh, it's Nuke." I was like, "Oh, this guy's a character."
I definitely didn't go, "Oh, this is Nuke," because I didn't know who the hell Nuke was outside of, like, if you'd showed me the tattooed, like, American flag on his face, I'd have been like, "Oh yeah, that's definitely a character." I don't remember his
the pill
name.
thing struck me as like I've read this character somewhere, but I don't know. Like
I had to look
where
up the
is
character
he? Yeah, that's kind of
specifically online to be like, okay, Marvel Wiki, tell me what I'm missing.
that's kind of
this feels like a thing.
And like you and I are people who've read a fair amount of Marvel. Like we, you know,
I've seen Nuke show up like once or twice. and
Yeah.
I think like he's shown up in an old Punisher comic or something.
yeah, that's kind of that's where I know him from.
And I feel like
because
they
it's
used him
that-
as a gag in Deadpool at some point.
Oh, they probably do. Yeah, I think I know him as Punisher because Punisher comes. Anyone who's like a war vet at some point crosses paths with the Punisher. You know?
Right.
Man, that guy. I'm
yeah.
not on board.
I really, Will Trevall does a great job. I think as this character, he really plays because at first you're just like, oh, Kilgrave cop, okay. Like I did not expect him to become a character in the show,
Yeah.
and then you see, oh man, that scene where he goes to Patsy's apartment and they're talking through the intercom and he brings her the gun and stuff. I'm just like, wow, what is this relationship?
I really found that fascinating. I loved that they like when he kept being around. I was like, okay, that's cool. They've got another side character that just
Yeah.
keeps going, and then it slowly becomes like, no, there's something going on with this character.
Yeah.
that is really like not off-putting, but a little unsettling.
Yeah,
He's real.
that's what I'm saying. The levels this guy plays in the show because.
The build to him, I thought, was
Well, because
really
at first you're like,
perfect.
oh, okay, well he's a Kilgrave evil guy, and then you're like, oh wait, because he's just charming enough, and you're like, oh, I can kind of see why Patsy would, and then you're like, something. This guy's being kind of weird right now. The
And he's
relationship
so
he has with
insistent that
Jessica,
to kill
Yeah.
Kilgrave.
yeah,
And when she's like, "Oh, I'm in my house," he's like, "There's a bomb in the basement," and you're
Yeah.
like, "What are you doing?
yeah.
What are you doing?"
Well, because then it's interesting. Like I was like, okay, all right. So now I really think I get where he's going. He's the guy who's going to go too extreme with it, and we've seen these kind of characters before. The soldier guy who's like, I'm going to blow this up, and she's like, no, I have a more interesting plan than that. You know, like and the guy who's going to ruin it by being a hothead. But boy, does he go even further than that. As soon as they bring in like Doctor whatever, I'm like,
Kozlov.
yeah, I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
Crazy mad scientist.
Yeah. And then the pills come out, and you're like, oh, whoa. Wow. And I just,
They went full on Marvel.
that went nowhere I thought it would. And I should, because it's Marvel, but you don't think that in this noir kind of
Yeah,
vibe for it to go.
But it was so fun and awesome.
It was great. It was a great, great decision to do that.
Just add another level of weirdness and like crazy super stuff.
Something
to it.
I've been wanting to ask you about, Grigoni, IGH. What's up? Inhuman growth hormone?
I want to say
Yeah.
I
Because
think they're-
MGH is obviously...
mutant growth hormone is a thing they do in the comics that like it's a chemical or a pill or a drug that people can take in Marvel comics that gives them temporary superpowers.
Yes.
I think IGH is whatever I don't necessarily know if it's going to stand for Inhuman, because as of right now, Inhumans has only been a thing in the context of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
But we know that will explode. I mean, is going to expand into a film.
Right, at some point.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's I don't know. It seems like it's a new enough thing to where they'd have the establishment of Inhuman growth hormone that, like, presumably this guy has taken before. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like,
Well, it's unclear. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there are people who knew about Inhumans before
Sure.
the characters of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. knew about Inhumans.
I think that's what it is. Whether or not it's called Inhuman growth hormone.
It is IGH, though.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I'm just saying,
make sense.
it's a Marvel show. You can't throw a letter GH and not and not know what you're doing with that, and they never call it out.
No.
And it's so mysterious and so
True.
like,
Yeah.
what is that? You
It's
know?
definitely what it is.
Yeah.
Is
It
something
has to
that
be.
gives people superpowers for a limited time,
It
whether it
has
just
to
be
be.
super strength or whatever it is.
Yeah. We kind of got off on that because Nuke is super interesting. I'm just gonna keep calling him Nuke because that's who he is. But I want to get back to Hogarth and that storyline.
Yeah.
Because throughout almost the entire show, I was like, why are we showing any of this? I don't understand why any of this matters.
Her plot line, but with her divorce with her wife.
Yeah. One of the things I will say, like, I love this show. a total waste of an amazing actress, Robin Weigert, who played her wife. People might know as Calamity Jane from Deadwood, where she was amazing, and just didn't really have much to do here
until the very, very end.
Yeah, I mean, she's got a couple of good scenes here and there.
I think
but
she was a fine supporting role.
Yeah, I've seen her in other stuff. She was on Sons of Anarchy as well.
Considering how good, like, well packed the cast is here,
Yeah.
like the fact that they have good people at every echelon
Absolutely.
of supporting character in the show.
It's a thing. Like, it's a benefit to the show, but just like. She can do even more.
Yeah.
I mean, she could have been Hogarth, really. I mean,
Right.
she's that good an actress. And not that Carrie-Anne Moss is bad. I think she did a good job. But for so much of this, I was just like, why are we showing all this? Who cares?
But
Get
the
back
payoff.
It pays off really well. And ooh, do I not like Hogarth? The second that the wire was cut, I'm like, oh, it must have been her. And like, God damn it, I can't believe she did that.
I absolutely loved her turn of just like she wants his powers. Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Oh wow! I mean,
Yeah.
that was brilliant, though. And once again, kind of a Marvel-y turn, because everybody, anytime there's a superpower in Marvel, somebody wants to control it and replicate it. Always.
Yeah.
And so that that they got into the thing with the embryos and stuff, and she's
Yeah.
trying to, like, potentially make new Killgraves or give people Killgraves.
Right.
Oh, that's so messed up.
But she's like a powerful enough lawyer and like has enough connections and money to make that happen.
Yeah.
And just like, oh shit.
That's the thing where it's like in retrospect, then all the stuff with her wife and stuff, you're like, oh, because they were just building this desperation to get to the point where she would do this. And so yeah, it's really my least favorite part of the show became suddenly not my favorite part of the show or anything, but was like, oh, now I see what you were
the
doing.
payoff is totally worth it.
Well, when she's trying to cut her 1,000 times.
That was so just like death by 1,000 cuts, and she's literally counting as she's slicing.
That
at
is
her.
what I'm talking about when it veers into actual horror. I mean, that's a horror movie scene.
Yeah.
Totally. That
And Hogarth can't do anything about it.
Nope. And then
But that was crazy to film.
but also like. I still didn't feel that bad for Hogarth, even though she was
No.
getting cut 1,000 times. Because, like, you did this, lady. You unleashed this monster on the
No,
world.
this was her hubris cutting her.
pretty
to
much
pieces.
everything that happens after he gets out of that thing is her fault. Because I mean, it's entirely her fault.
Absolutely.
They include, I mean, the death of his parents and stuff. Which yikes!
Oh my god, the bit with the
Yikes.
dad with the arm. Oh my
Well-
god.
In the blender.
yeah.
Here's my question about the dad.
No, I meant when she finds him.
Oh, and he's all cut up. He's-
When his missing limbs and he's still alive, and it's just like, oh my god, this is
once
some
again,
body horror crap.
Yeah, it's horror. I mean, this show has its moments where it veers into full on horror.
Yeah.
My question about the
Or
dad.
it doesn't even veer; it turns hard into it.
Here's my question.
Oh, I think we talked about this, but yeah.
He sprays that pheromone on to be immune to Kilgrave, right? He asks him to do something in the scene with the people with all the nooses. He hesitates for a second. He looks at Jessica, and then he submits to Kilgrave, right? We never again see him doing something against his will, with the exception of when he's putting his hand in the blender. Because
I think at a
is telling
certain point
him,
it wears off.
well, here's the thing: is he's putting his hand in the blender, but he's looking at him like, can I fake this? Because I thought that it worked. I thought that he had figured.
I think it worked at first, but then he was with Kilgrave long enough after that fact
There's
that
no
it wore
there's no
off.
payoff to it that would warrant it working in that scene.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't
just-
go anywhere.
It doesn't go anywhere, but it also doesn't explicitly not go anywhere, right? Like you don't see him be like, "Oh no, it failed," or like freak out about that. And he's with him when he's like giving him progress, right? He's like expanding the duration and the amount of people he can affect.
Making him more powerful.
We don't know that he's not doing that more slowly, right?
I mean, possibly.
I'm just saying.
Also, I figured that
don't-
like when he made Kilgrave more
There's not enough
powerful,
evidence of the show to really
Kilgrave
say
was
one way or
able
the
to
other.
like overcome it. Like the Kilgrave
Oh.
virus became more powerful, so whatever like
So you think that
immunity
for-
he concocted got
and now
obliterated.
he unfortunately had to undo all that work.
Yeah.
Right.
Which we should talk a little bit about Kilgrave's background because much more interesting than just a guy fell in something.
Yeah.
Because I the whole time when I was watching the first chunk of episodes, I'm like, are they going to take like a Kingpin approach to this? And we're going to start going back and seeing who he was and perhaps explaining some of this. And they do, but it's also left in this kind of vague. There's still some secrets there.
Oh yeah,
Like-
his parents were part of some kind of strange, weird, mad sciency organization.
And like,
it gave me a very AIM vibe.
when I really thought they were working for AIM, and actually when that doctor showed up with the pills, I was like, AIM? Is that when then they said like he's part of an organization before it was IGH? I'm just like, AIM? It's AIM, isn't it? AIM already exists
I know.
in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I'm waiting for them to
It's
drop
out there.
it. Like, I'm hoping Iron Man 3 didn't like destroy that. I want AIM to come back in some fashion.
I don't know why it would have destroyed it, but
Yeah, no. Well, other than what's his name being dead.
yeah, Killian. But I mean,
Is he?
I want
Is
the
he-
organization to live past him.
Yeah,
in the
and I
same
think
way
it
that
will.
Hydra has.
Yeah, and I think it will.
Yeah.
The big thing there is to make a point to people who don't know the kind of like AIM is not Hydra, because you'd be like, what, another evil organization?
They're
Like,
like Hydra's militaristic.
yeah.
AIM is all about mad science.
Yes, exactly. But anyway, there's this. What I like about it is like initially Kilgrave has this whole thing about like my parents experimented on me and made me this thing, and then they're like, no, we were saving him, and it's like you don't really get a firm answer as to which one is correct.
No.
And the answer is probably somewhere in the middle where it's like we wanted to save him, but then we wanted to see how far this would go.
But also, when we saw how powerful he was, we ran.
Yes.
Because he scared the crap out
But
of
not
us.
right away. That was the other thing.
Well, yeah.
He makes them-
said he makes them out to say that they ran away, and then we find out that his parents were stuck around for months
And they
because they didn't have a
tried.
choice.
Yep. They tried to figure it out.
Yeah, so it's really this interesting thing about like, are his parents heroic or evil or somewhere in the middle, or
I think they're definitely somewhere in the middle in that. Like,
Yeah.
they got scared and they ran.
yeah.
That's
And I mean, and to
they
which
didn't know how to handle a mind controlling 8-year-old.
but to a certain extent, like then some of the onus is on them for all this crap happening.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting thing, and that's why I like the complexity of this is so incredible that it's not as simple as a cackling madman.
All of
doing
these
this.
characters are so interesting and complex. And that's what makes
Absolutely.
the show so powerful and strong.
Yeah, no, it's a great. I mean, yeah, obviously we could not recommend Jessica Jones more. It's really, I mean,
Every character who is a focus in the show has complexity and depth that we just don't see in any of the Marvel properties. I think even opposed to Daredevil, we see a depth of like the main and supporting characters in a way that we don't necessarily see. Like I feel like we get a better sense of who, like, say, Patsy Walker is as opposed to Foggy Nelson. Like, I love
Yeah.
Foggy,
yeah, I know, I think you're right.
but we don't get as strong of a sense of like what is driving that character or where that character is coming from, both like emotionally and like chronologically.
Yeah, I mean, and I
Foggy
think,
is just like Matt's best friend that he met in college.
and he has moments where, I mean, you see like the Nelson v. Murdoch episode and stuff like that,
Right.
where you see, I mean, like, but he is defined by his relationship to Matt.
Yes.
Patsy is not defined by her relationship to Jessica.
It's reinforced. It's very like those two are a lattice work of relationship together. And I love the backstory of like how Jessica got introduced into the Walker household and their like friendship that started out between Jessica kind of standing up for
Yes.
Patsy, or I keep calling her Patsy Walker because
Well, she is Patsy Walker.
right, but in the show she's
I've actually forgotten because
They call her Trish.
Trish Walker. That's
Walker,
it.
that's
That's it.
Patricia, and they
Right.
call her
Patricia.
Trish.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The Trish talk show.
Yeah.
because she's not Patsy anymore because Patsy was the character she was
Yeah.
on. That was her Hannah Montana.
Everything is Patsy.
Yeah, I love that. That was great. All that stuff, and then people coming up to her and recognizing her and stuff. Yeah, that stuff was super fun. There's so much good stuff here.
I like when Jessica makes the guy lose to her at the strength test. Like,
That was awesome.
Just boom, one punch.
Here's an interesting thing. The way that they deal with Jessica's backstory in the show is interesting because she was never the superhero she was in the comic.
No,
They bring out the
talk about the
costume,
I love the nod to the costume,
and her name was Jewel in the.
well, Trish
the-
recommended that,
But in the comic, her name was Jewel. Is what I'm
Yes.
saying. And then the idea that Trish
because in
wanted
the
to-
show she never actually like gets off the ground, so to speak. in
Not
terms
really.
of
You get the sense
superheroing.
she did a little bit of saving some people here
yeah,
and there.
and she definitely was like about to commit herself to becoming more of a superhero.
Yeah, I mean, she's sort of heading down a Daredevil-y sort of path of like, at least initially.
I think it felt like given like maybe another year or two, she could have been floating around with the Avengers.
Possibly.
if Kilgrave hadn't gotten.
But where you see her, though, she's like stopping muggings and
Right.
doing this kind of stuff,
It's like,
alleyways.
given another like year or two, though, getting her like superhero persona like going, she could have stepped up with the Avengers.
Yeah.
But because Kilgrave got to her and broke her when he did,
Yeah.
she never got that chance.
Which is really interesting and almost, and actually in a lot of ways is sadder than the character that's in the comics.
Because the character in the comics got to be a superhero,
Right.
at least for a time.
Yeah, here was somebody robbed of their heroism. Here was somebody who had the inclination to do it and the will to do it, and was ready to do it, and then this monster came along and took that away from her. I mean, more than anything, he took away her heroism to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And so much of the show is about her getting that back.
Yeah, definitely. By the end of the first season, we definitely see her reclaiming that and getting back into a position where she's ready to be a hero.
Yeah, but on her own terms.
Exactly.
She's not going to be a superhero. She's never going to be a superhero.
No.
That's not who Jessica Jones is. She's
But she can be a hero individually for
Yes.
people in the same way that Matt Murdock can.
exactly. Which is going to be really interesting to see how she then fits into the Defenders.
I don't even
Because-
know what the Defenders is anymore.
Because
Do you think-
if everybody's a costumed somebody running around
Do you
and
think
she's
Cassie's
just
going to be in the Defenders?
possibly Hellcat could be in there.
That'd be sweet.
That'd be really cool.
I mean, and it is the other thing too. We keep coming back to. I was just like, when are we going to see the Defenders? Because they're making another season of Daredevil. We could probably see another season of Jessica Jones before we get there.
I think they've said, though, season 2 of Jessica Jones isn't going to be till post-Defenders.
Okay, well, so then where's the Defenders fit into this stuff?
Well, we're going to get Luke Cage.
Well, and is
That's
Jessica
next
Jones going to be a part of Luke Cage? Is a big
I am
question as
assuming
well.
she's going to be...
Yeah.
Because that's one thing I get at the end of the show is, like, Luke Cage is kind of up in the air. Like, he's in
Yeah.
a good position to get his own show by the end of the show. Just because I don't know what's going on with him.
But he's also was in Jessica Jones so much that what are they going to do backstory wise? What are they going to do?
Well, they don't. I mean, the great
don't
thing
need
about it
to.
is they don't have to.
yeah. So
we can
what's
just
that,
move
what's that
forward
show
with
going to
Luke
be?
Cage.
It's gonna be he's gonna be a hero for hire. He had some line in the show about like, I'm not in the hero business or something like that. Where I was like, please say hero for hire. I'm not some
He's not in
kind
the
of
hero business yet.
like, I wanted to be like, I'm not some kind of hero for hire or something like that.
I did love how many times he said "Sweet Christmas."
Yes! Oh, I couldn't believe that. I did want to bring that. I never thought they would include that. And it works. It shouldn't work at all. It's such a silly
That
thing for
guy's
him to
so
say.
cool.
Man, he pulls it off. I mean,
Sweet
yeah.
Christmas.
Everybody's so well cast in the show. And Mike Coulter, boy, did they get this right. This guy hasn't really done much. He was on The Following, that Kevin Bacon show.
That show was fantastic.
That show's it's a great show.
Talking about riveting.
Oh boy, yeah! You want to watch an intense show? That you will watch that in an afternoon. Really. Like that. That's put aside a weekend, and there's your because you can just blaze through it. But anyway, he was just sort of like nameless other FBI guy on there. You know? Man, though, this is a star-making turn. He's the discovery here. Like I knew Kristen Ritter, I knew David Tennant, I knew Rachel Taylor and Carrie Ann Moss and all these other people. This guy comes out of nowhere and is just wow. You're just like
And nails it.
He's Luke Cage.
He is Luke Cage.
Which was brilliant of them to do that, to just pick a guy and just be like, no, you haven't really seen this guy before, and he just is this comic book character.
Right.
Yeah, no, he's incredible.
But it does make me very excited for a Luke Cage show.
And I would love to see. I mean, like whatever they end up doing with Iron Fist, I would love to see eventually some show that's the two of them, Power Man and Iron Fist.
Hell yeah.
They don't have to call him Power Man. That's fine. He also doesn't have to dress like he did
I'll give him some
ever
like,
again.
What?
a yellow puffy vest or whatever.
The headband and
Yeah,
stuff.
the headband.
Yeah.
Chain
Where's the
belt.
head? Look, the show's great, but I have one coming. Where's the headband? If I ever run into Mike Coulter,
That's what I would say.
I'm going to say that to him. But let's see. I want to talk about where we kind of leave this show. Kilgrave dead.
That was one of them. It had to happen, I feel like. But I wanted him to be around
But
as a threat.
he's in Luke Cage.
I feel like that's going to be weird mindfuckery.
Well, then
Flashbacks?
Yeah.
I don't know about flashbacks.
Because this is one thing we talked about briefly. I believe this was Donovan, you and I. Like, how long was Luke Cage Kilgraved for?
Yeah.
Like, is really unclear.
Yeah, I think purposely so.
Right.
But the other thing is, Kilgrave being this thing could, like you said, linger in people's heads.
Because we do
Forever.
establish in the show, he's a virus.
Yeah.
Like, there's a chemical thing that's going
Yeah.
on when
Yeah.
he infects people.
The other
You
thing
see
is,
Jessica, I mean, have her PTSD in the first couple episodes of like
yeah,
hearing his voice. She breaks that one on the subway.
I realize I'm about to make a Dune reference here that you guys might not get, but it's definitely Alia thing in the third Dune novel of her, like she's getting weird
you
mental
get-
flashbacks of Baron Harkonnen. I realize you guys aren't getting.
Well,
these
for a
references,
second,
so
I
it's
was like, I might go with you. Then you said third Dune novel. I was like, okay, no, I'm
Yeah,
out.
okay.
I read that first
but like
one. That was
that
it.
character still being a villain, still being present, but
Mm-hmm.
only as a phantom within another character's mind.
It's a cool idea.
Is a very cool idea that can work really, really well
Mm-hmm.
as just like he's the devil on your shoulder.
Also, a comic. I don't count anybody out.
Yeah, it's true. To be fair, but in this one, and this is the one case like we saw the body,
Well, yeah,
we saw the neck go snickety snap.
that's true.
Well, there's also crazy doctors who can do crazy
This is
things.
true. This is true.
Zombie Killgrave.
That's where they're going.
He's already called Kill Grave. Do we need to add zombie on top of that?
Yep.
He's killed the grave.
Oh, damn.
There you go. But yeah, so sort of where we leave the show, and then we leave Jessica with Alias Investigations. That last shot is great.
I love that when they're panning out and the window's there and Malcolm picks up the phone for her. And it's like, "Alias
Which is what he does.
Investigations."
That character does do that in the
Yeah.
comics. He sort of answers
Alien
them.
investi-
But he's more like a punk kid in the comics.
He's more like a hanger-on who's trying to like associate.
He's also
himself
like
with
a
Jessica.
superhero nerd in the comics. Like, he
Alias
knows everything.
Investigations. How can we help?
Yeah.
Awesome last line. For
Perfect,
That show.
perfect cap to the show. I mean, the thing that's so great about these is we basically get 13-hour movies because that felt like the end of a movie, where it's just like, and boy, do I feel satisfied by that ending. Like this feels like a complete thing. Yes, I want to see season 2, but it's not like, oh, where's season 2? Because I need to know how that thing, just like Daredevil, also had that
Right.
feeling where it's just like, oh yes, this is the beginning of something, but it's also definitively the end of the first chapter of whatever that is.
Yeah, definitely.
Like a movie should be. Boy, Marvel's doing it right, man. They know what they're doing.
They have yet to have a big screw up.
Yeah,
Like,
they
everything
really-
they've
they
done
really-
so far has been entertaining and impressive.
I've said this, but it's true. Once they got over the hurdle of Guardians, I don't know that there's anything that can stop them.
yeah,
I mean,
don't
that was the biggest sell of them all.
know. I feel like Doctor Strange is going to be the next big hurdle, but
But
even that's not necessarily as big as Guardians.
Nor I don't even think it's as big a sell as Thor,
Really,
because he's a wizard. Like there's far more of an understanding
but
for
Thor
like
was always
wizard.
Thor was always caged in like it's sort of magic, but it's also like just really advanced technology.
Mm-hmm.
If they do that route with Doctor Strange, I feel like it's doing it a disservice as opposed to just the straight up it's magic.
I mean, there's a way that you can kind of it's beyond our understanding, whatever
Sure.
it is, which is even, I mean, hell, even Thor, like, yes, it's advanced technology, but it's pretty advanced technology. I mean, it might as well be magic, really.
It's Clark's third law in motion. Is
Yeah,
what it
I
is.
mean, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think we're gonna read Doctor Strange as noticeably more magic than anything I see in Thor. Really, I mean, really, at the end of the day, like a rainbow bridge. I mean, what the hell is that? Really, that's pretty much magic.
I mean, that's like Star Trek, like beam me up, Scotty, sort of a stuff.
Except for it's a physical thing that you step on. I don't know.
Well, no, that just leads you to the portal room though, that shoots
Yeah.
you across the galaxy.
This is true, but I don't know. I'm just saying. Like, I think it's going to be trippier. But also, we went into the freaking microverse in Ant-Man, which was pretty trippy.
The quantum realm.
Yeah.
I hope they eventually call it the microverse.
Oh, I hope they do.
They will.
Yeah, I think
have
they
to.
will. Yeah. Which, yeah, we'll see when Ant-Man and the
We'll
Wasp
get
comes out.
Micronauts.
Yeah, well, somebody's making a Micronauts movie.
What?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not with Marvel though.
No, Marvel doesn't have the rights to
Marvel
Micronauts
hasn't
anymore.
had the-
I think it's the guys who made the Transformers and stuff like
Oh,
that.
fine.
They're doing that because it was a toy. It was another toy tie-in.
Yes.
Like I don't even know that Marvel has ROM anymore.
Is Space Knight?
They don't have ROM, but strangely enough, they still have the Dire Wraiths, which is so strange to me.
We could do multiple episodes about weird rights issues forever because
Wait, they
especially
don't
from
have
that
Rom,
time
but
when
they have Galdorians.
I have no idea.
I don't know. They love to throw the word Space Knight around. There's a
But
Venom
the
Space
Dire
Knight.
Wraiths were ROM's bad guys.
Yes,
Right.
But the
And they're-
Galdorians is where Rom was a Galdorian.
Right, but the
So I don't think they have Galdorians. I think
but
they
the
just have
Dire
the
Wraiths are still around
Yeah. No, those guys are still around.
because they were definitely in the latest trade of Miss Marvel.
Yeah,
With
they
all
totally
the,
were.
the
Yeah,
Galactic Inhuman stuff.
they totally were.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Oh, I did want to talk about because I mentioned it earlier. It just hit me now. We talked about how far the show goes in content in both Daredevil. The weird lines that they won't cross, I think, is interesting.
Yeah, the smoking thing. When you brought that up, like now that I think about it, that is very bizarre.
They also just flat out won't ever say the F word. Kevin Feige says as long as he's running Marvel, no one will ever use the F word in any of their properties.
I don't necessarily that's fine.
Here's the thing, though. As far as these shows go, say it. I mean, really, who are you protecting? What is the difference at this point? You can do it. I mean, look, the Alias comic is chock full of that word.
Oh, sure.
All the time.
The whole thing, one of Jessica's traits is that she's pretty foul-mouthed.
Yeah. I mean, and she is in the show as well.
Yeah.
But I just don't. I mean, say it or don't. It's not like it's not like it's damaging my enjoyment of the show. But it just feels like, what do you...
It's glaring when it's like, they want to say it so bad, but they can't.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing, like, I get in the movies, right? You could get one in.
Right.
You could have had Star-Lord say the F word. You don't need to, because there are going to be kids, and I actually... I have respect for that because I don't understand the one F word rule. Mm-hmm. Like, once you said it, the damage is done. Then you could say it 400 times. I don't see how that's more damaging.
Right.
Like, either...
With the MPAA, John.
I know with the PG-13, I've always been like, it should be either all or nothing. Like,
right.
you should either get none or as many as you want. It doesn't matter. But with the Netflix shows, I'm just like, what are you? It becomes this weird, like, personal thing from Feige almost to a certain point. Then, because it's just like, if you're going to show these fairly graphic sex scenes that don't really have nudity in them, and that's fine. I don't expect that. Nor do I really care, once again. But
would you call those graphic? I don't know if I
Yeah.
necessarily...
I mean, I would call them maybe not graphic, but they are. They're not. They certainly don't pull any punches with them.
No.
I mean, the camera. They're not. They're beyond implied sex scenes. I don't really know what the word I'm trying to use is here. They're realistic sex scenes, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, besides the superpowers bit.
Well, yes, of course, but I'm saying, like,
unsimulated is what it feels like them.
Well, no, it's not that, because that's just
I know, but
pornography at that point.
Yeah, but but what you're saying is it feels like it's not.
I mean,
It's not the movie magic of two people rolling off each other,
or
and
it's
covered by
not done
sheets.
in this like Top Gun in silhouette montage kind of way. It's portrayed very realistically, very
Black Dynamite, where it cuts to an animated sequence.
anything like that. I mean, yeah, the 70s had a lot of that kind of stuff. The 70s and 80s had these terrible, they're very blunt, very matter of fact kind of sex scenes. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying, like, if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to just splatter people everywhere in a Daredevil show, I just don't know. Who cares if Jessica Jones uses the F word then at that point? It more fascinates me than it upsets me or anything. It's just like, wow,
I don't have a good...
that's still too far. All this stuff is fine, but we can't do that. We're Marvel.
I wasn't even thinking about it while I was watching the show, quite frankly.
The only reason I think about it is because I heard Feige say that years ago.
Yeah,
and then now I'm watching it going like, boy, they won't do it, will they? That's really interesting.
Yeah, just watching the last episode of The Defenders right before they're about to go up against the big bad, and they're just like, "Fuck."
That'd be really cool, actually. I would think that was really awesome if they did that.
I love one of my favorite moments in the whole show.
Mm-hmm.
Back to Luke Cage being the hero.
Yeah,
is when the dogs they're in that drug warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
There's a dog. She's like, "I'll take care of it. Unbreakable skin." Right? Jessica meets up with him later, and she's like, "You didn't kill those dogs, did you?" And he's like, I don't hurt dogs, right? Like, no. Like, I just, no.
Once again, Luke
so
Cage is a
cool.
hero, yeah.
Yeah, I just like, no, come on.
I don't think so, yeah. Cool. Is there anything else you guys specifically want to mention? Okay. You were just waiting for
not
me to
even
ask
get a
that.
chance to talk, but yeah,
I
go
love
for it,
that.
Donovan.
What is it?
I've been sitting on this the whole time.
Okay.
A chair?
Oh, I like this is the big one.
You guys made fun of me on the Daredevil episode for having strong opinions.
Oh no.
I have an opinion you guys might find ridiculous.
Wait, did you already tell me about this? Because
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
What are you
wow.
going to rhyme with Kilgrave?
Oh no, we almost need like a theme song for this about Donovan
This
Eilert
drove
nitpicks.
me crazy the entire
Oh God!
show.
If it's anywhere near as stupid as the
Fist
egg
can't
thing,
whisk.
fist can't whisk.
What do you got, Donovan?
You guys.
We need to come up with a hashtag for whatever this is going to be too.
So, who's dating Hogarth? And I can't remember her name.
Her secretary?
Yeah, her secretary.
Oh yeah. I we didn't mention her. I was just trying to mention everybody. That was Erin Moriarty, who played Hope Schlottman.
Okay, Hope. She wears
Oh no.
the exact same style, almost the exact same dress, and a different pattern every episode. She looks like a Sims character that somebody's literally clicking the next pattern on, and I could not believe it. I'm like, is this the only type of dress that she's contracted to wear? Like, put her in a pantsuit, put her in a different top, like, do something differently, because she's like a cartoon character at that point.
Here's the thing about this statement, and this, I can't argue with it necessarily. I flat out just did not pay attention at all to that.
It is,
and I'm really, really glad about that.
It's so
because
sad.
The amount that I can't even
wears the
imagine
same thing the whole time too. Jeans,
but that's on. I mean, because I think it's very like that's just
looks
it.
like a cartoon character.
No, I mean,
Yes.
Jessica.
Yes.
You have a problem with what Jessica's wearing?
That
No,
worked
I'm
with
saying-
Jessica because
I don't
she
think
didn't
Jessica-
necessarily care about doing laundry.
I also, yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
going to
No,
say.
I
I don't
get
get the
that
sense
more.
Jessica owns a lot of clothes.
But after the hope thing, I'm like, maybe they're just lazy. Maybe the costume designers were on strike, because it seems like
none
they
of this struck me. I mean, the
phoned
Jessica
it
thing did only
in.
because, like, once again, I expect to see her in a leather jacket and jeans.
John, they phoned it in. Also,
Marvel can be accused of a lot of things. I don't know if they've ever phoned anything in.
phoned it in.
And we've got a lot of people working here
I'm
to
sorry,
make
I'm
this.
working really hard to find something that rhymes with hope and is apropos of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
It's just not coming to me.
Also,
It's not a fist can't whisk. So nothing will top the pure magic of fist can't whisk.
It's a pure A magic, John.
Yeah, very true.
yeah. Hope's threads ain't dope, but
That's fine. It's not.
what I was gonna say. Also, this is first. I'm deadly serious about the Hope stuff.
Well, I can see. I'm looking at you
That
right now. You have
drove
that
me crazy.
deadly serious look in your eyes.
We didn't
And kind
talk
of a
about
murderous one too,
maybe
actually.
the most upsetting moment of the show might be
Uh-oh.
when Jessica, after a long day, crawls into bed.
Uh-huh.
She rolls over and she's like, "Why am I bleeding?" And then she opens up the covers, and there's Ruben.
Yeah.
That was so upsetting.
Another very horror moment. Yeah.
That was so upsetting.
Personally, I think one of the most upsetting moments in the show was another scene where she's in bed, she rolls over, she grabs her phone, and realizes she didn't plug it in. That was so upsetting for me.
Yeah. It's dead. Ruben's dead. Maybe that was
That was
foreshadowing.
foreshadowing.
That does remind me actually of the a thing that is very disturbing is his Kilgrave's whole thing about sending him pictures every day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Weirdo.
Because that once again that takes it outside of the realm of his powers and into just this like. Ugh.
That's still a matter of control.
I
Yeah.
love when he's in that club and he's like, whatever that Luke Cage line of like, "I'll keep telling you every day until you believe me." And she's like, "You heard that?" He's like, "Heard that? I wrote that."
That
And then
is-
you find out that Luke has been Kilgrave that whole time, and you're just like, "Oh my gosh, he's such."
The fights between
A twisted
Jessica and
person.
Luke are just such a desperate struggle
Yeah.
that the whole time I'm going, I'm not rooting for anyone here.
Right.
Both of you need to run.
Well, I was gonna say.
And she shoots him in the head with a shotgun.
Yeah, that was.
was
I do love the
intense.
hospital one
Yeah.
when they send the order or the nurse out.
Yeah.
they're
That
like,
was
"Get
straight out of, now, this is going to get confusing for anyone reading comics, Secret War,
Yes.
no S,
Yes.
Right.
where Luke Cage gets the crap beat out of him and, like,
Yeah.
the doctors can't do anything
Yep.
because
Yeah.
his skin is unbreakable.
Yeah, but I love when they're like, "All right, get out of here. You're no good." The nurse.
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
can't
Get a
run
nurse who can. Yeah.
You can. Yeah.
Yeah. Gergoni, I have a Marvel related question here. I swear I read in a comic once that Luke Cage couldn't be controlled by Kilgrave.
Because his constitution is unbreakable.
I swear that happened in an issue of perhaps New Avengers.
I do not know.
Because I was telling you, and I can't for the life of me, because the whole time I just remember being like, well, yeah, but the one person who can is Luke Cage. Because where did I pick that
when he
up?
blows up his bar, that was awesome.
Oh, that was one of the coolest shots
Because
of the show. Just watching
I
him
believe
walk
in
out
the
on
comics, Kilgrave's thing is, like, pheromone based.
fire. Yeah.
And, yeah, I don't know.
Boy, any listeners out there, I would love it if you write in about that.
Based in the show too,
Because
the virus. I mean, there's that virus.
Similar.
Like,
Because I
It's gotta be transmitted
swear
through
there
the
was a
air.
thing about that, that there was a thing, and he thought he controlled him, and then Luke Cage just beat the crap out of him. He was like, no, can't control me.
I have no idea. Yeah, if you remember some time where Luke Cage couldn't be controlled by no man, then
I might have
write
just
in.
made this up, but I had that in my head the whole time.
In your head, Luke Cage is just that badass.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's true. He's pretty awesome. That will be in the Luke Cage comic I write, which we've talked about some of the other comics I'll write, and once again, won't be that exciting.
But it'll just be Luke Cage. Like, it's mostly just a page of, like, the Purple Man going, "I've got you now, Luke Cage," and Luke Cage is just like, no, punch, 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 punch.
End of story. You're welcome. Marvel.
You're welcome.
This is one page. It's like, I said it all.
I said it all.
I said everything you need to know about Luke Cage and the Purple Man.
Look, page 2 is just him punching him one more time and then handing him over to the cops. I don't know what you'd want there.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I just cut it for time. I really think it hurt the pacing of the story. Cool. So I think we're going to wrap up the conversation then about Jessica
I mean,
Jones.
at the end of the day, I think we can, as we said at the top of the episode, go watch Jessica Jones.
It's so good.
I will say this about the show. There have been a lot of people approach me. It's like, so do I need to watch Daredevil to watch this show? It's like, I honestly don't think you need to.
No, you really don't. They're the same world, but they operate independent of one another.
There's like 1 or 2 references to Daredevil.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. But
yeah,
like,
I mean, no more so than they reference the Avengers in Daredevil.
Yeah.
Or this, you know.
yeah,
I mean, like,
I don't think you're going to get any more necessarily appreciation having. We're still going to recommend watching Daredevil.
oh yeah, I mean, they're just great things. They're just
Right.
great shows. But as for what order, even, you know,
Yeah,
whatever.
But yeah,
Whatever
go
you
watch
wanna-
Jessica Jones.
Go watch it. It's on. All episodes are available on Netflix right now.
It is great.
Very good. Watch Daredevil again too if you've already seen it.
I kind of want to watch Jessica Jones again. I've
Yeah?
only watched it the once, and like quite frankly, I think it's about time I go watch it
Great
again.
Stuff. It's great stuff. Cool. So now we turn to the way we end every episode with our recommendation segment, where we recommend comics you should be reading. We've obviously already recommended a TV show. We've recommended a couple of TV
And
shows
the comic that TV show is based
and
on.
the comics, and
Samurai Jack.
yeah, we've also
Samurai
recommended Samurai Jack and Into the Badlands, and
Oh, we didn't recommend it, but we recommend it now.
yeah, Into the Badlands.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That show's so awesome.
It's great. And if you like comic books, I actually think you would like it because it has a very comic book kind of vibe to it. And it's created by the guys who create Smallville. Yeah, I know. Your hatred of Superman
Extends into TV. Yes,
Yeah.
you're correct.
knows no bounds, sir. Knows no bounds. Donovan, what have you got for our listeners this week?
So,
Already, such a great start to any recommendation. Yeah.
if you have 40 minutes of time
Okay.
and you have not seen Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog,
Yeah.
watch it.
Okay.
I'm not going to give you any more preamble.
Mhm.
Anytime I hear somebody who hasn't seen this, I'm like, just go do it. It's not even an hour. It's like less than an hour-long television show.
Yeah, Gorgoni, you and I have actually sat people down to watch this.
On several occasions.
Just like somebody mentioned they haven't seen it. It's like, that's it. Sit down. We're watching it right
Yes,
now.
I have gone out purposefully with people who haven't seen it before to like theater events where it's being shown. Just be like, this is going to be like fun on the level of like, maybe not quite as crazy as Rocky Horror, but the enthusiasm is there. Where like,
Until it's not fun anymore at all.
yeah, well that's Rocky Horror, and that's a whole other monster.
Well, no, I'm not talking about.
not?
I'm talking about Dr. Horrible.
It's fun all the time, always.
There's
but
a
yeah,
distinct
no,
Whedon
Dr.
turn
Horrible
in it.
is definitely one of those things like you haven't seen that and you sit them down and watch it because it's like you said, Donovan, it's not a huge time commitment per se, and it's just you're not going to regret spending the time to watch the thing.
So, Donovan, are you
great.
recommending a movie? I
I
say
would-
this like I don't see what you're recommending, but
I do recommend that movie.
yeah.
After you have watched that movie,
Yes.
have you not seen it before? Or now, if you have, go out and buy the Dr. Horrible comic put out by Dark Horse.
Yep.
It will cost you $9.99.
Is it only
at the
$9.99?
most. At the most.
Wow.
Saying if you got it on sale, you could get it for
Hey,
cheaper.
they get-
It is written by Zach Whedon
Yep.
and
Of
features
being a Whedon
of
fame.
being a Whedon.
Of the Whedons.
Of the Whedons, the Whedon clan, and it features a new artist for every
Yes.
single issue, including a podcast friend, Joelle Jones.
Yeah.
And it is so much fun. It is one of my most prized comics. Just,
Is it?
Yeah.
It's
So
awesome.
What
It's also-
precisely
it's
is
also-
this comic?
it's also
I say
signed by-
like I don't know.
Joelle Jones.
Yeah. I know that would make it. Yeah.
Basically, it expands that universe in delightful little ways. So there's like a Dr. Horrible comic and one that features bits of Johnny Snow, and there's a Moist.
It's a series of
episode.
short stories.
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. It's just like little vignettes
Yeah.
of.
I particularly like the Bad Horse one.
The Bad
I
Horse
do
one is great.
really
yeah.
like the Bad Horse,
I do. I like the Moist one quite a bit. I do enjoy Moist.
and I just
Most people don't.
I know. That's why I like. But I mean, like I have a great love for Milhouse on The Simpsons in that same way. I love these kind of sad sack characters.
I just think that you should read this comic. everybody.
I don't know if I've ever heard you more sincere on this show, really.
I just think this is a great comic.
It's great. It's super fun.
It's just like,
I ran out and got it right when it came out.
again, you can read it in a few moments.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could probably read this faster than you could watch Dr. Horrible.
I'm sure you can. It's a very brisk and fun book.
Yeah, it's great.
But I wouldn't recommend reading it without seeing.
No.
I mean, you could. It just wouldn't be.
There's no context.
Yeah.
No, it's really meant to be a companion piece. Mm-hmm. Very cool. Gorgoni, what do you got?
John, I don't know if you know this about me.
What was that?
I like Godzilla.
What?
It's
Well, wait,
I know.
you always recommend Rachel Rising on this show.
Yeah.
I think you're confusing
Or
yourself with me.
No.
Okay, just making sure.
That was the best possible delivery ever. No.
But yes, I do in fact enjoy Godzilla.
No, I did know something about this.
I've recommended several Godzilla comics on here before, and guess what? I'm about to do it again.
What?
I-
Somebody wrote more Godzilla comics.
They're always writing more Godzilla comics, and I never want them to stop.
All right.
But
enough.
recently, the trade was released for Godzilla Cataclysm.
Ooh.
From IDW. It's a very
You got like
cool
anything
book.
with the word cataclysm in it.
I mean, I'm a fan. To be fair, that was the WoW expansion that made me stop, but
cataclysm.
Yeah.
It's a great word.
it is.
It's got the word cat in it.
Who made this comic?
This comic is by Cullen Bunn,
Then it's
a
good.
favorite of the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And Dave Wachter? I don't know how to say his last name. Another long
wouldn't
line.
be this
Yeah,
podcast if
exactly.
we didn't have-
Wachter. I think it's Wachter.
Wachter.
Art by Dan Wachter and written by Cullen Bunn. Godzilla Cataclysm is like a post-apocalypse Godzilla story. It is a really fun comic about monsters have pretty much obliterated the world. Now there's just these small tribes and pockets of humanity clinging to life.
Got it.
But they consider these monsters that kind of wrecked the world as gods. And they pray to them, they sacrifice to them. Some people are praying that they never return, some people are praying that they do return. And inevitably, this comic book wouldn't be what it is if the monsters didn't come back.
Yeah.
The main thread is of this old guy who can kind of remember the time before the monsters wrecked everything, and his grandsons who are have been raised in this new epoch of monster worship and this post-apocalyptic survival. And them kind of
Godzilla meets Mad Max?
it's a little Mad Maxy Godzilla if the wasteland was more just urban rather than out in the Australian outback.
Yeah. You reminded me a little bit of those kids in Beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
But no, this definitely has a very post-apocalyptic feel to it, which I really enjoyed. You never really see the kaiju apocalypse movie.
No, as you were saying that, I thought that's a really interesting idea.
I think there have been Pacific Rim touched on it a little bit, though. Quite frankly, humans won in the end, so the apocalypse never actually happened.
We canceled it.
It's true; they canceled the apocalypse.
Idris Elba canceled the apocalypse.
It's true, he did.
Yeah.
And I want to say there was a web series or something that was focused around the kaiju apocalypse.
It's interesting that hasn't been touched on because it does. I mean, I've never thought about it, but as you say that, it's that does seem like a really obvious way to take that kind of story.
But yeah, and this book is
Cullen
super
Bunn
fun.
doing it again, man.
Yeah, and it's
he writes everything.
a quick, brisk
And I'm okay
read.
with that.
It's if you're a fan of Godzilla, it's got a couple of pretty good deep cuts into the Godzilla
There you go.
kaiju catalog. Biolante is a fun favorite, the giant plant monster.
I don't know what the hell that is, but it's a giant plant monster.
And it's a central focus of the story, actually, because that giant plant monster could possibly regrow all the plant life that's been decimated by monsters and bring some hope back to the world. But
little swamp thing,
Godzilla's not having any of that, though.
No.
Godzilla is pissed and he wants to destroy the world yet again.
Oh, so he's that Godzilla? Because I can never figure out, is Godzilla a good guy or a bad guy?
Depends on who's writing it.
Hey, we haven't said it in a while, I feel like.
He's a force of nature.
Godzilla is a walking atomic hurricane.
Yes.
Is his best
Because
incarnation.
sometimes
in
he's
my opinion.
defending humanity. He's like a full-on hero in that
it's
most recent movie they made.
Well, it's not humanity. It's just the world itself, I feel
Right, for the most part.
He's just
if
no,
a
no,
three-headed
no, no.
golden dragon shows up in space, Godzilla's like, bitch, this is my neck of the woods. You step off. Regardless of what humans
I
are
like
actually
that.
doing.
Can you write this very catty Godzilla comic? He's
Ghidorah, you had best step off, sir.
It's
he's
called
like a real housewife in this.
It's called Godzilla bitch please.
Oh man, I want to read that comic more than anything now. Godzilla, bitch, please.
And Rodan's just his butt is like, Godzilla, please settle down. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't rile him up.
Yeah.
Ghidorah, you better leave before Godzilla gets really pissed. You don't want to see him when he's angry.
know what
Oh,
he
you don't
can
even know what
do.
he's like.
Oh, now you got me going.
Oh man, now you got him going.
Oh boy.
But yeah, Godzilla Cataclysm. If you're a fan of Godzilla or just like awesome post-apocalyptic monster stories, I highly recommend.
Cool. Awesome.
Great.
Sounds
John,
good.
what do you got?
I have a book. This probably doesn't need my recommendation, but I just read it and I
And then you might as well not recommend it. Well, that's the episode.
All
everybody.
right. Goodbye.
Good night. Goodbye.
I just tried to do an impression of our theme song, and I actually forgot what it sounds
God,
like.
we need a new theme song
Yeah, maybe we'll get one someday.
someday.
We'll have to ask Santa for a new theme
Okay,
song
for Christmas.
We're asking for a new theme
Krampus, are you listening?
song. Ooh, don't ask him. No. He's busy starring in that movie that's out anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went-
He's gone Hollywood.
Connect through practice.
Krampus goes Hollywood.
There you go. Can Ernest go with him too?
Yes.
Oh
sure.
my
John,
God.
what are you
That's the
recommending?
What I'm recommending this week, I just read it. I just read it, and I want to talk about it. So what I'm talking about is Dark Knight 3: The Master Race.
You read the first issue?
I read the first issue of
Okay.
it, by Frank Miller. But what's interesting about it now, by Frank Miller, co-written with Brian Azzarello.
So we got a little Amber Sands there.
Yeah, and it's drawn by Andy Kubert, kind of emulating Frank Miller's style.
As many have done before him.
Yeah, but it's interesting that he's drawing a Dark Knight book like the first Dark Knight, but specifically trying to draw it more like the first Dark Knight book.
As opposed to the insanity that is Dark Knight Strikes
Dark Knight
Again.
Strikes Again. Now I reread Dark Knight Strikes Again. I'm not recommending that. But when did you most recently read Dark
I've
Knight
said
Strikes
this to you
Again?
a couple of times,
Okay.
actually, that with each sequential rereading of that book, I find it both less and more offensive.
The beginning of it's all right.
Yes.
It's off to a good start. He had an interesting story. I don't know what the hell that last chunk of it is. It is craziness.
Technical and Nightmare.
Yeah. All right. So, but here's the
Apt.
thing.
That's apt.
As much as I trash it and stuff, you have to read it to read this. It is so important that you read Strikes Again, or else you will not be able to follow the Master Race.
Cool.
But based on this, I mean, once again, I did say the beginning of that was good. It's off to a really interesting start here.
Cool.
Not a lot of Batman in issue 1.
But, John, it's called Batman.
It's called The Dark Knight.
Okay.
It's not called Batman. It is technically called The Dark Knight.
Fair
I don't
enough.
know. This is
there.
This is Frank Miller's world. But there's also a comic. This is the first time there's a comic within it. Like inside of this comic is a slightly smaller comic book.
So this is
Like
like
Watchmen style.
Watchmen? Yeah.
No. It's not. They're not reading the comic within it. There's just like you're flipping through the pages, and then you come to a page where inserted is like I said, a smaller comic book. That's about the Atom.
Okay.
That's kind of a prequel to this book.
And it's, oh, God, it's about the Atom and it's smaller. I get it now.
Yeah. So anyway, you get to find out what the Atom's up to. Really interesting book. Deals a lot with the Atom and Superman's daughter, who you might remember from Superman and Wonder Woman's daughter,
Right.
from Strikes Again. We're dealing with Gotham City, of course. It's interesting. I'm recommending it. You got to check it out. I don't want to say too much about it.
But just know that at least that first issue is definitely worth
It is
reading.
worth it. Yeah, but there's a lot of secrets in it, and a lot of and by the end of it, I was like, what?
So they've got you.
They definitely have me. I'm going to read the next 7
You'll
because
be
I
back for
believe
issue 2.
I believe it's an 8-part miniseries.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's good, and it's selling
I
like
kind of want to
crazy.
keep myself away from it until the trade. I just I don't know. I'm very I'm leery of it, John. I'm not
Okay.
caging this any other way. I'm a little just like, you burned me before, Frank. You burned me before.
That's kind of where I'm very hesitant in like my like reading. I'm like, all right, this is good, but the beginning of Strikes Again is kind of good too. But having Azzarello there, I think might balance out. I think there's a reason they gave him a co-writer.
Yeah, I don't know.
And gave Kubert the art, who's doing a fantastic job. He's a great
Also,
artist.
and like all of us here, I really do like sitting down and reading the whole trades worth of stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. For
How
sure.
many pages is the first issue? Like, how is it
Oh.
traditional? Like 22?
Well, it's tough because it has a whole other comic in it.
Fair enough.
So no, it's more, but I think it's a traditional 22 with like probably another, I don't know, 12 of the Atom comic.
Interesting.
So it's an interesting book. But anyway,
Curious to see how they're going to publish that.
yeah. It's they also just they just re-released the first issue.
Because they sold out. Like, they sold
Well,
buckets of it.
yes, but in hardcover.
What?
Yeah, you can buy a hardcover copy of the first issue of this comic.
Oh, my God. I thought they were already going insane with, like, the 50 gazillion...
Oh, there are
Variant
50
covers.
variant covers to this. Yeah, 50 variant covers.
Can you get all 50 variant covers in hardback?
No,
Oh.
no.
I want them to go that insane.
Do you have
on
any
it.
idea how hard it would be to get all 50 covers in general? Some of them
like,
are exclusive
damn near
to
impossible.
some of them are exclusive to parts of the country.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's anybody who's collected all of them.
Oh, there has to be.
And there's something like the Jim Lee one, I believe you get one for every 5,000 you order as a store.
What?
Yeah.
How do you... Is that just like the store copy you mount over the door to be like, yes, we are the king of Batman?
No, because
But
if you
the idea-
sell it, you make your quota for the month.
Well,
Right.
what I've kind of heard is like a lot of smaller stores are doing that because if you sell that, you've like made your money. It's so expensive that you then like basically make money from buying the 5,000 anyway.
And now we just have like a pillar of Dark Knight like issues that we use as like a support beam in the store.
Yeah.
It's load bearing Batman.
yeah.
That's a load-bearing Batman. Please don't touch
Please
that.
don't touch
you can't
that.
buy that, sir.
We sold the Jim Lee cover so we can have this pillar
Yeah.
supporting our roof.
These mean nothing to us. But anyway, yeah, it's super crazy, and obviously there's a lot of buzz around it and hype. But at the most, it seems a lot of people's reaction seems to be mine, which is just like, okay, good, yeah,
You've got me.
Let's see where it goes from here.
Okay, cool.
Cool. So that's Dark Knight 3: The Master Race. So I think that's going to do it for this episode of Panel on Panels. I guess.
Well, I mean, you can find us on the internet, John.
Oh, that's right.
Just find us on the internet. I think that's the furthest we need to say.
Just look for the internet.
Look
you know-
for the internet or
Yeah.
look for us on the internet?
Well, first find the internet,
Okay.
and then see if you can track us down
your
on there
head
as
out
well.
the
Now, there's only a
window
couple of
and
things
yell,
on the internet,
"Internet!"
right?
I mean,
there's only a
there's
couple.
the Twitters, there's the Facebooks, there's the MySpaces,
Yep. Friendsters.
Friendsters,
Our Friendster's blowing up, you guys.
Harmony.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn
Tinder.
for when you want to hire us. Tinder.
Craigslist.
People are always swiping left on panels.
Yep.
Is that a good thing? I don't.
I was just about to ask. I have no idea.
I kind of did a coin flip there.
Let me
Right or
see.
left?
It's one or the other.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Craigslist.
Clearly, we're not on Tinder.
We're on Craigslist.
Yeah. Target.com.
Target. You can find us. There's a link.
Yeah.
You got to look for it. It's little. It's tiny, but it's there.
But you can get a hold of us on Twitter at Panel on Panels.
Mm-hmm.
We love to hear from you guys on Twitter. If you want to write us something a bit more long-winded than 140 characters, you can email us at panelonpanels@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, please. We want to hear from you. We've actually got a couple great emails this last week. Really enjoyed reading them. If there's enough, we might give shout-outs. Or if
We gather around the fire. We make some cocoa.
Then we burn all the letters. It's
Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
print them out.
We make a point of printing them out just so we can burn them,
Yeah.
keep us warm. It's
We
not
don't have enough letters yet to keep us warm. That's the issue.
That's the
Keep
problem.
Us warm.
keep us alive.
Shivering here.
Yeah.
It is cold and there are wolves.
It's freezing. Guys, there's a wolf right over there.
Oh, God.
Don't look. Don't look.
Okay.
Don't look.
okay.
No, he's going by. It's all right. He didn't see
Okay,
us.
we're fine.
I can make a glove out of glass if I need to.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Did Liam Neeson taught you that? Mm-hmm.
What?
Fair enough. For Panel on Panels this week, I've been John Campbell.
I am currently Mike Gergoni.
And I will always be Donovan Eilert.
Keep reading comics, everybody.